The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
The top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Industry of Comics episode this Tuesday night. I'm here with Jesse James and Dennis Barger, two longtime industry vets, my co-hosts in this 18th episode of the Industry of Comics. We got a fun show tonight, you guys. We're just gonna get into it. Two of the longtime friends of the channel here at Beyond Wednesdays, Big Clutch and Drew from Wanted Comics. You guys, welcome. Oh, we only see one of them. Hold on. We can fix this. Both of them. Yeah. How you guys doing, man? Good. Excellent. Look at this. The very first episode appearance of Drew Lujan. You can't beat it. Yes. Yeah.
Days, like, cannot stop. Once that camera's on the live shows, it's just like blah, 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 blah.
As
Drew
would
woke
say,
up.
dead time is like no cell time. You need to keep the audience.
Somebody
engaged.
said they can't hear Clutch and no audio.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're just on.
Drew,
We're on one. We're sharing one mic in my place right now. So
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, Drew will call me and he'd go, "You have a second?" And about an hour and a half later, I'm like, "That's a long second, man."
Well, that's you, man. That's not me. I mean, that's like, hey,
one more thing.
hey,
Yeah.
I was in the retail side, and
So for those of you guys that don't know, Drew and Clutch are two of the new industry vets, I would call it, like the new industry, right? Clutch jumped out of the old industry into the new industry of live selling and con retailer. Drew's been a long time retailer in this game, website and an eBay guy who jumped into the live selling arena. This new industry, as I call it, has really taken over comics as of late. And one of the things that all of us here talk about the most between each other is this live selling genre that we jumped into. And we're going to talk about that pretty heavy tonight. But before we start everything, I want to, because we have Drew here, I want to get into a little bit of Drew's beginning in this game, because we never really got into it. Drew, how did you get started into comics? I mean,
1912.
Yeah.
I always mention the Fred Flintstone, but no, when I was in the corporate world, that's Jesse's line. I was a stock trader at the LA Stock Exchange, on the New York Stock Exchange, and I was buying vintage Hawaiian shirts, the wooden buttons, the rain spooners, and I get some cool shirts, but every once in a while, man, this shirt's not too small. It's like for small. I sell them on eBay, and I was making really good money, but it was too hard to list one shirt at a time. Like, the size, the tag, there was a burnt spot, like Dennis Cigar burned a hole in the sleeve. You got to mention that. But I'm like, man, I used to read comic books. I was a big seller. I'm like, I could buy hundreds of comics at Diamond. The West Coast distribution for Diamond Comics was located in my hometown, literally down the street. So it was an unfair advantage to thousands of retailers. I could literally drive 3 minutes and pick up my books without paying the UPS bill and getting no damages.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Because you could not do that at New York. And I believe you couldn't do it at but I had heard so many retailers talk about being able to just drive over and pick up their orders from the West Coast. So tell us how that went down.
Back in the day, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Or back in the day, you pick up books on Wednesday, and you make sure you paid for them. They call Wanted Comics is here, get his pallet ready. Back then, everything came through Diamond, Marvel, DC, Image, everything. So when the big order came, It was pretty big. And then when San Diego Comic-Con was happening, I would make a 1 year exception. I go, hey, I need to pick up my books on Tuesday. I got a huge pallet. I'll pay in advance. I need these books a day early. And they're like, oh, we don't know. But every year they let me have the books a day early for once a year. Because I obviously Diamond was down there in San Diego, but you can pick them up. No freight charges, no extra damages, no. It's a big advantage. And I still have that advantage to today. I can still pick up my books they're not located in my hometown anymore, but you're 10 minutes away.
Yeah, that is a huge advantage.
Unfair advantage.
Yeah. I don't know about unfair. You're just lucky, right? You found the right place of the country.
You guys seen those videos? I mean, we just saw Ultimate Fighting Challenge, the guy throwing the books in FedEx. And Dana White got someone fired because the FedEx was throwing boxes.
Wow.
Imagine that with slabs or comic books in those boxes.
That stuff still happens. I've worked at UPS for a smidge, and you're not handling everything with kid gloves. Like you're chucking boxes to get your shift done. So
trying to get done like South or one of the airlines saw the golf clubs. They were throwing the golf clubs. And the golf teams in the airplane, like, hey, we have a golf championship, and those are golf clubs getting thrown around, and
$100,000s worth of golf clubs.
So what year was this that you were doing this?
I got my Diamond account. Well, I was going through. Remember Greg Bulls in Arizona?
Yeah, sure.
We were just talking about Bulldog.
Yeah. I was ordering off Bulldog in 2001, and I got my Diamond account in 2002.
Wow. Okay.
So 22 years.
Yeah.
A million comics later.
Yeah. What's great about that is I actually bought out their warehouse when I first started. So everything I had, they had hundreds of. Heavy Metal Magazine, #1. Oh, we got Heavy Metal Magazine #1. Then there'd be like 500 copies. So it's great to buy that warehouse.
They were heavy on the, was it not Valiant, but what's the
Sonic?
Sonic. They had some other like the Sirius or
Cyrus. They a lot of stuff, but it's great to have that. In Arizona, you could pick up your stuff from. There's a Diamond office as well there. There was also a Capitol at the time as well, when back in the day. So
Drew is known for his I mean, all comic, not all comic, but a lot of comic guys are known for their warehouses. But Drew, I feel like, has a never-ending warehouse of modern books that like nobody else has. And Dennis, I don't think Dennis even has the modern stuff that
he's
Drew
close.
has.
He has the movie theaters. As soon as he bought Xanadu, I go, he's not buying a movie theater. He just bought a warehouse.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, where's the movie playing? I'm like, I want to store stuff there. I knew exactly what he was doing. I was a storage unit. So everyone's like, movie theater. I'm like, no way. Those are high walls. Rip out the seats. These dummies didn't realize what he was doing. He's so far ahead of the game. I knew what it was. But no, I wanted that warehouse, but you can't buy something like that in Southern California. They knock
exactly
condos there. So
yeah.
So
I think definitely mutually, Drew and I both envy each other's warehouse stock and inventory because I envy Drew's organization. My stuff is just in boxes. But so I have to dig to find it.
That's why I never show the warehouse.
Yeah. What's funny is
this morning I found 20-pack of Merc with the Mouth Deadpool #7s, the Lady Deadpool, 20-pack. I keep everything 10 packs or 20 packs. That was a 20-pack.
Right.
That might be a hot one.
You coming from the trader world, isn't it weird that in the comic book world, it's almost like we have these big warehouses where in the world I come from, you would get fired for having that stuff because it's not about how much stuff you have. It's about how much stuff you sell. But in the comic book world, we do talk about our massive warehouses and how much product we have.
I think it's one of those weird things where, our inventory in the situation usually appreciates, right? And where if you're sitting on, if the Nordstrom days, right? If you've got, you're sitting on 2,000, button down shirts, like that's not going to go anywhere, right? That's just dead stock. So, I think it's also one of those fun things. Like you do see like I go through stuff in my MySpace. I'm just like, what the S? I had no idea I had this much stuff. And like, you kind of forget too.
Yes.
And I think it's, you get, sorry, my dog's in the background.
Oh, hell yeah.
You get a bit of like, you get it like, I call it, it's like a cardboard coma where you're just overwhelmed by all the boxes. And I'm like, I don't know what I've got. And you're just like, I'll just grab one box and just look at that. And that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys happen to see there was a New York, it was in New York, a collection being sold, and they were doing an auction on it, and the guy, I think it's the guy who was doing they were selling his collection.
The guy that was slapping the hand out of the one guy.
Well, I'll play it for you. This is from the Great Curator on IG.
This one is all first editions. The other one is a full run of Tom Strong. You don't know the comic industry for shit. Oh, man, you're acting like an idiot. I've given him plenty of options. He doesn't have to do it that way.
First edition.
Collectibles. The other is sealed action figures. You're not selling the same thing. Then maybe you should come early and look around at what you're going to sell.
So the story on this, from what it sounds like. Oh, no video. Thank you. Jesus. Yeah. All right, let me play it again. The story of what it sounds like is this. This guy right here is the guy who owns all the items.
The consigner.
And these guys are the two auctioneers, and they don't know what they're looking at. They have no idea about comics or collectibles, and they're just grabbing random stuff instead of,
oh God,
and here, I'll play it again for you. This is crazy.
Our choice. The first one is all first editions. The other one is a full run of Tom Strong. You don't know the comic industry for shit. Oh, man, you're acting like an idiot. I've given him plenty of options. He doesn't have to do it that way.
First edition.
Collectibles. The other is sealed action figures. You're not selling the same thing. Then maybe you should come early and look around at what you're going to sell.
Elliot,
instead of yelling.
This is unacceptable.
So, I mean, that's exactly like you guys are talking about. Sometimes you look and it's nothing but boxes, and you just like, what's in this? How are we going to sell this? And one of the things that the guy brings up on that post is, if you have all this huge collection of stuff that you're sitting on, have an end game of when you decide to sell it. Be ready for that end game. You have to have a plan going in how you're going to sell all this stuff.
That guy should have called Rage Theo. He could have had some great sale. I made a lot of money because Rage would have
consigned it all.
Yeah, that was the blind box too. I mean, Jesse and I will all be buying there because blind box is the best boxes.
Yeah.
As soon as we start breaking out the books and see what you have there, you're gonna pay a lot more money.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know anything.
Me and Brian were actually at something like this, about 3 years ago.
Don't tell the story because I get jealous. No, we're not hearing the story. Everyone's heard it. Next subject. Yeah, you got everything. Yeah, we heard.
Okay, we won't talk about it. I will just leave it that I bought 265 lots out of 400, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. So.
Comic porn all day long.
Worst day of my life. That's what it was. Worst day of my life because I was not there.
We would have driven out.
I would bid you up and everything. I don't even want this box. I would. Let's call it mucking.
Right.
Mucking.
Yeah, I think what happens is people know you're going to outbid them no matter what. So you actually nutrition out the other auctioneers that say, well, screw it. He's just going to outbid me, right? And so it's a challenge when you go to that stuff because you don't really see anything, and the auctioneer is just like those guys. This guy had no idea what he was showing, and so it's
one of my strategies when I do those, because I do a lot of auctions as well, is I see which ones I could live without in the middle or like in the first quarter, and I start bidding those up, and I let the smaller fish take those at a higher price than I think they were willing to, and I burn their money supply out by the time they get to the halfway mark, and then at the end it's just like they don't have any money left. I get everything at the end that I want.
Cutthroat, man. Cutthroat auctions.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happens on the big eBay live shows. We had Murat on Thursday, and some of the high ends went really, really, really big. But near the end of the show, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna cap the show," because I could tell the money's running out.
Yeah,
and everyone got a couple of big items, and I figure everyone spent a couple guys spent like $500 each. You got to know your audience.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the viewing audience. I'm like, we're gonna end the show at 15 minutes. So that it always works at the prices. You always give a set time you're going to end when things are going bad. So that keeps the prices up.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
trick
It's all
news.
about it. A live streaming is all about nutrition, knowing about your customer base, knowing their spending habits, and making sure that at the end you have a price point for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge during it. Like when you're at a convention, Shawn and Drew, I don't know how you balance that because I don't do conventions. How do you balance that dollar amount?
It's tricky, you know. I mean, we have last weekend we had some different artists. You know, we were out on Thursday night. We had Rose Besh on Friday. We've never had Rose Besh. Rose Besh never been on eBay, and we had a different crowd, but she was killing it. She did 6 original sketch arts. We outed her out on her Baroness, her very first Baroness cover. That. It looked like her. I'm like, you're not going to kill your co-host, are you? And she started laughing, and you know, she draws a lot of art upside down. So I looked at her shoes. I'm like, I'm going to see what kind of shoes you're wearing. She's like, what? I go, oh my gosh, she's wearing Nikes. So, you know, she draws a lot of upside down stuff. We got her laughing. And, you know, after the show, she goes, I want to work with you in San Diego. We're like, yeah, that was the ultimate compliment. But, you know, David Sanchez the next day was real life charcoals. And I asked Rose, do you ever work with charcoals? She goes, one day in high school is my worst day of my life. My hands get all dirty. I'll never do those things again. So David Sanchez has this unique lane in the art community because most people refuse to even touch charcoals. It's dirty.
Yeah.
It's messy. Yeah. And, you know, we had Garrett Gunn. He's completely different. And we had one regular show with no artist. So I was like, yeah, I could do my thing. And we watched the Dodger game. So but it's different. I mean,
yeah.
But
well,
Shawn, different.
Shawn,
so
you have just real fast. So Shawn, you have a lot of price points on your show. I mean, you go from basic to very high end with what you're doing with your exclusives and variants. So how do you run that on your shows?
Yeah, a lot of you're right. I have a pretty varied, like Drew has a very specialized, like, you know, a lot of high end stuff. I have a pretty good mix of things that are, you know, a couple bucks to, you know, a couple hundred, depends. And I just try to find a mix, right? My shows tend to be pretty much like curated to like an hour to an hour and a half max. And I try to have something for, you know, I want to ride the roller coaster with people. So I want them to be able to, like, if I get a couple cheap books, great. If I get an expensive book, great. And it's, you know, and it's an interesting show platform because, you know, your communities are different. Like the guys who come to visit my shows, we have some crossover between the two, but like I've got different people who come to me because they know, like, hey, Shawn, like Clutch is going to have some rare in Walking Dead stuff, rare Invincible, some weird stuff. They know that Drew's going to have like high ratio Marvel stuff and like weird, you know, he'll do a ton of Do You Poo stuff. And so you get different people for each following. And I'm just like, hey, I'm going to have, you know, I like I said, like I like the roller coaster vibe of it. I want you to be able to, like, someone's going to go away with something. And if someone gets a great deal, like that's another thing we do a little differently too. I think both Drew and I currently run, like we start our auctions at $1 and just let them go. So it's just like, hey, this is free form, like whatever goes. And if it goes for a steal, you got to steal it. I'm stoked, you know, like I don't, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, that book should have been $60 and they got it for 20, but like, you know what, dude, like that guy's probably going to come back to the show next time you do it. He might get a book for 30 that should have been for 20. And you don't know, like things go weirdly random. Like when people are bidding and these things, like I was on McClay's show on Whatnot the other night, man. And there was a couple of those, David Nakayama Lady Deaths. I had sold mine at Comic-Con last year and I was like, I really wanted to keep a pair. So I was like, I'm going to get these. And like, I got the first one and then the night version, I was like, it's just too rich for my blood. So I had to tap out.
Well, I missed that show because I was competing on the other networks. I missed your show. I was bummed.
Well, you know, I'm the black sheep in this group right here, right? I'm the guy that is the collector that, you know, just sells a little bit here and there to, you know, pay a couple bills, maybe get a couple grails. And, you know, that's kind of my deal. But, you know, you guys are doing this every week, multiple shows, especially Drew. Like, Drew, you are freaking just nonstop working, selling books. I mean, you're like getting Jesse James status, slanging books. I'm trying to
keep up with Jesse.
Yeah.
If you ain't slinging, you ain't living. So, I mean, we got a Heroes Con this week.
Yep.
We had Dallas last week. we got a little break. I'm not doing Denver because Denver Con's on the 4th of July, which is bad timing in my opinion. San Diego is, I call it a home show because it's only 2 hours away.
Yeah.
Right, sure.
But we got lucky. There's Riverside or Inland Valley Con a couple weeks ago.
Ontario.
Ontario.
Yeah. Comic-Con Revolution.
Comic-Con Revolution. I mean, that was like an hour drive. That was easy. And we had lunch with our presser.
Well, and I gotta tell people about Drew here. So I'm a virgin on the West Coast. You come to Midwest, you come to my zones, I can hook you up with anything, hotels, whatever. But in Los Angeles, I don't got shit. I don't got anybody supporting me. And Drew came through, pardon the expression, clutch, but he came through clutch for me big time. Grid wall, tables, chairs, because we were setting up at Star Wars Celebration, and I had nothing and no way to get it out there cheaply other than the product. We were shipping our pallet of product out there. And man, you saved my ass, Drew. So I love you to death for that. Thank you.
Thanks.
You and Leg.
Yeah, Lego was there. We went to lunch, legendary lunch by him at my dad. It was lots of refreshments, it. So
that's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that I think is when you start doing live stream, especially with me and Drew, where we do so many shows, for instance, this weekend, I'm not saying this to brag, but the last 3 days I've sold 1,200 books on eBay Live. The problem is tonight people are always saying, what time is your show? So what happens is you start cultivating this cult of comic book collectors that say, listen, we don't really care about your time if you're going to have dinner or you're doing your live show. What time are you going to sell us more books? And that's the challenge, is trying to be, okay, selling 1,200 books means I have to ship 1,200 books. So if I have to ship 1,200 books, how am I listing 400 books tonight, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Drew knows this. Once you get past over 200 listing on eBay, it's a cluster. It's very tough to do your shows. So I think what happens is you got it. Sometimes you have to say, can I be that guy that can sell 100 books on every show?
Yeah.
And that's probably better than having this weekend that is explosive, where you guys are at conventions, you're selling these great books, and these customers they don't want to turn off eBay Live ever. They just want to shop. You can go at 3 a.m. Drew will end his show, and those people don't stop. They come over to my show. Yeah, it's crazy.
They don't have the raid feature yet on eBay. We'll say, I know we raid Webster's Vault. We technically can't raid, but we'll drop some, cover your ears, Jesse. We'll drop some eggplant emojis, and we'll say that means our crowd went to his crowd by dropping eggplant emojis, and eggplant kind of looks like a certain piece of
You don't say.
And hey, we got fun. eBay doesn't have all the rules in the world yet, so why not? So we keep our show PG-13 though. So we're famous for seeing some good-looking triangles.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing, is because eBay Live is the new big dog on the block in this live selling, world, and it's a different ball game compared to what a lot of people are used to. Whatnot started a few years ago. The majority of us jumped on there as soon as they started gave us the opportunity to, and it was the wild west over there. Now eBay starts, and it doesn't feel, it feels like they actually are thinking a little bit. I don't know, inside thought and inside track and stuff like that, but they're not allowing certain things that Whatnot allowed when they first started. And do you guys think that's because they have the big corporate eBay behind them, or because they're actually thinking about it?
It's a good point. I think it's a mix of both, right? I mean, Whatnot, the lawyer is a lawyer, right? So they're going to be like, hey, we know what the legalities are for doing mystery boxes or giveaways or whatever. And I think what, eBay, in contrast, is, a very legacy auction type provider. And I think they're like, hey, let's just focus on having, some good sellers and good, quality auctions, and just build on top of that, as opposed to build onto the Whatnot. Because Whatnot's based off of the I think it's the Chinese, live auction apps and live sales apps, which are just, I mean, massive over there. You can see the content farms that just knock stuff out. It's insane. And so a lot of that, there's gamification and all that stuff that goes in that stuff. So I think they definitely pulled from that. But eBay is definitely going for a more curated, experience.
Well, most people, you ask people what was wrong with Whatnot, and they say, well, I was in these mystery packs and I won for like $60. They said the ceiling minimum is $100, tops $500, and they open up their pack and it's a big pile of poo, and not the Marat kind either. It's just like, this is like not even close to being anywhere close to the bottom. And luckily, eBay does not allow mystery packs. They don't have lotto tickets. You can't sell live ammunition. I said there's certain rules. They're like, well, obviously you can't sell people, but they don't allow mystery packs. If you look at Whatnot, there's so many mystery pack shows. It's like, bro, that means it's a book you couldn't sell by itself. You throw 5 of them together, it's still crap.
Yeah. Well, I went in a different direction. You saw my mystery packs, Drew. I went the other direction, which was I had $2 into a book plus $25 grading fee, and it's $1,000 book. So let's start the bidding at $500, and everyone's going to get $1,000 book when they're done with it.
I remember you on Whatnot, but all I remember is the last video. Like,
exactly. Yeah, that's all we know you for. Well, I think the one thing with eBay is percentage-wise, the brand, the sellers, the brands on there are very solid brands. I mean, you're looking at 3 solid brands right here that are on eBay Live. There's not a lot of us. There's only 16 sellers, right? 16 sellers. That is it. You got 3 of them right here. So the percentage of brands are better, right? Because of the smaller percentage. You're then get your stuff. There's a lot of good things with eBay that you can look at. We kind of technically police our own, right? And so I think there is some advantages. Drew had talked about getting his books early and having that advantage. Well, that's business. Business is about getting an advantage. So we shouldn't shy away from that. We should look at what gives us a better advantage to sell one more book.
Yeah.
And we exploited a loophole with one of our friends, Big Leg, because he presses and cleans. And that guy, we know in Midas Hands, he's on your show all the time, but we started submitting books through him. He pressed and cleaned, and all of a sudden we started getting 9.8s, 9.9s, and 10.0s. So we're like, hey, you could submit books through us through conventions. We stopped doing the blue labels. We got too busy. But a lot of people submitted yellow labels, and lo and behold, I said, hey, if I ever get a 10.0, I'm jumping in the pool. It never happened. Now it happens all the time because it's mostly Marat books because he had CGC come to his plant and learned how to make the perfect comic. It gets 10.0. And end game is people want 10.0s. That's what they want. They're not going to read it anyways. They want a 10.0.
Yep. And like you said, the printers are so good at printing these books now. The quality is so high.
Except for at Marvel.
Yes.
So I got a question for both of you, because you both were fellow Whatnot sellers when I was on Whatnot. And obviously I had a dramatic leave from Whatnot.
Wait. What are you talking about? Hold on. What are you talking about? Are you talking about
the greatest tech guy over here? The feed's dropping out. I finally said, who the fuck do I gotta blow to get a tech guy over here?
But the funny thing is, what is the difference, right? You're still that guy.
You're just not on the platform.
Yeah, just not on the platform, right?
Excuse me. I have been very responsible on our industry.
Oh, yes, you have.
Yes, you have.
We will give you that.
So,
give you that.
Fuck you, Jesse. Same guy. I'll show you same guy.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So
same
what were you saying?
Glasses.
But back to my question. What did you learn from Whatnot, and what have you taken it from Whatnot over to eBay, and what worked and continues to work?
You want to start?
No, you go first.
I thought they were going to kiss for a second.
I think a lot of the stuff from it just how we run the shows, right? Like, stick to the script. Here's a book. We're going to put it up. We're going to sell it. Start at $1. Run it. Like, don't add all the fluff. I did, for the period of time, I did enjoy doing, giveaways and stuff, but that was because I was I was representing Skybound as a publisher. So like, I'm going to put some crazy books in here. You're going to win a slab. Yes, that's awesome. Come to my show for that. Now that it's my money and it's my product, It's a little different, but I still think those parts about it are big, and making sure like you bring a good show, you put a package together. Like all live auctions are going to be the same wherever you are, not where you is. That was stupid. But I think it's like a lot of the stuff I've honestly, like, I'll say this, be like being on McClay's show on Wednesdays and like putting together a presentation of like, this is how we put a show together, and what you're going to do, and being able to take that onto these live streams. I treat it like that. Like I treat like I'm on the stream as a show, not just me selling books as an auction. Like, this is a show. Same with Jesse when he does his shows. Like, you make this the event that people are coming to talk to you as you give them deals. But then you're also, I've got, my system here is a little different than Drew's, but like I've got, I got a Roadcaster. I use OBS that, Bryan showed me how to use. I run Spotify through there. I have a little fun playlist that I do. So I make it like when they come, I want them to be like, hey, this is the experience I want to get when I hang out with Clutch.
So I didn't have all those bells and whistles. I had this show, Great Books, and I would always drop Ultimate Fallouts and High Ratios and real books. Or obviously I would watch the Hot 10, the House of Stein, books were on the top 10 list or near the Hot 10. Try to drop books that people were chasing, books that are coming out next week. I listed real books, Marvel, DC, Image, Dynamite. I did make these silly books that look like printed at Kinko's, and that's what the main reason why a lot of people left Whatnot, because imagine that your Kinko's book with Homer Voltron is not worth anything, because it was never worth anything, and nobody can find it on a price guide. So, but if you look up a Hulk 181, and I mean Webster's bought one this weekend. Yeah, and he slept with it. No, Garrett Gunn actually came to a hotel room and goes, "Is your roomie sleeping with a Hulk 21?" I'm like, I would too, why not? But that's the book he picked up, and he was going to put it on his pillow because that was the safest spot for the book to be.
So I'm gonna say off of Drew's comment just now. So the difference. So Drew brings minimal production value. So he just got his single camera, but he has amazing product, right? Yes. Great books, all that stuff. I bring kind of mid-range books, but I bring amazing production value. So we kind of flip it that way. I got to bring the bells and whistles, the music, the songs.
We
and all
say
that stuff.
Everyone has better music. Everyone has a better set. Our set is their logo in the background. But we start at $1 and let it rip, and we only go 30 seconds. I mean, it's the same thing for 1 in 1,000, 1 in 500. Yellow labels. We let it for $1. Someone's getting a good deal. Hey, we had misfires every once in a while. It actually works to our advantage. Like, folks, I went for $1. Everyone's like, I told it was going to be. I'm like, you guys are all sleeping. It happens. Like when they announced the trial verdict, eBay live shows, everything stopped. Everyone's watching TV, and, guilty. But I wasn't bidding on eBay. I was watching the TV when that happened. So
I say my best show ever is I was doing dollar books, and I think Bryan has the video of it. But what was the book?
Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel, Adam the Blue Marvel.
And I'm just going through these dollar books, right? And just boom, boom, boom. And I put up this book for $1. And within 10 seconds, it's like at $60, right? I'm like, what the heck is going on? So it only sells for $60. So a $400 book sells for $60. But what happened was everybody posted about this show that sold this book, this $400 book for $60. And so it is an advantage sometimes to you to have a book go for below market. Obviously, we're getting it at our cost, and you have to equate that. But so there is this thing about people. What do you think about people that get mad when they sell something and they let it out on their customers?
When it sells for too low.
It sells too low, and you guys don't deserve this and all that. How do you coach integrity?
We say congratulations. You want to be in the show to have, people are watching the show to be entertained. You don't want to see bad, like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. No, you're going to get deals, and we drop things for $1. We were hoping people get things. We hope they get graded, and we hope they get 9.8s. Guys got a 10.0. Like, goes, "Oh my god, I thought I'd never get a 10.0." We got that customer for life. He bought that book for like. We sold that Wolverine. It was a Marvel book. We got our first 10.0. He bought it. We saw the price. He bought it for $21. It was like a $40 book, maybe. Got it for 21. Sure. Got it graded. Big Leg did his magic. Got a 10.0. And Leggett's like, I don't understand. We send in foils. We send in metals. We send in better product. We never got 10.0. And we got 10.0 on that Wolverine.
You know, I think one of the things, and I've seen, especially just in how we all kind of do it, like we don't have physical stores, right? So we're building this small online community with our people. And if they get a deal, I know that guy's going to come back and he's going to do it again, right? And I've seen the weird thing happen is, and it sometimes, look, books will go for, you know, well below what the fair market value is, right? But then sometimes you get books that go a little crazy and people get in a bidding war and they're like, hey, I need to get this. And I've seen what, you know, Drew, like where he's put up a yellow label, you know, signed slab, it's 9.8 and it goes for like $100 over market. And you're like, whoa, dude, like who did that? And it's like the customers aren't kicking it back because they're like, hey, I got it. Like I wanted this anyways. And you're like, cool, you know, and like sometimes this is how it goes. And you get so into and that's of course says everything about our current, you know, culture and society. Like everything is the instant gratification. You want that little gamification, but like when you're in it, you're going for it.
Every once in a while, the book is so easy to talk about. Like last week in Rose Bash, she pulled a Cobra Commander blank. I'm like, have you ever done a Cobra Commander blank before? She's like, nope. I go, who are you gonna draw? I'm gonna draw Baroness. And you had the video up earlier, Brian, but you pull it up. But she draws it, and we do some other auctions, and she's drawing it, and finally she gets done. I think it's just look around, but I mean, she gets done with the final there, that one right there. She gets done with the final product, and I'm like, Rose, do you want to tell the chat something? We can keep a secret. She goes, what do you mean? She goes, this looks like you. You want to tell the chat you're secretly Baroness and you might kill your co-host? And she laughed, and it was her very first time drawing Baroness. So I'm like, oh my goodness, who's going to win this book? There's so much pressure we're putting on you. You'd be the only guy on planet Earth with a Baroness cover. So we kind of built it up. Yeah, the book went bananas. But we asked her if that was Rose Bash, and she smiled and laughed. But some books sell themselves. I mean, that was the easiest layup of all time.
So if you took out live streaming, tell us about the climate at conventions that you are seeing the last couple of conventions you've been at.
Dude, they've been pretty packed. Like honestly, I've the last time I was at C2E2 for me. I saw Dennis there set up. I was hanging out with Chris Rupp a lot. You were at C2E2. You were also just at Dallas.
Dallas, it's pretty crowded. These organizers, these cons get these actresses, actors, voice actors big, put them in a different segment, put the comics, then the Funkos. So that way it disperses the crowd, but the food, you can tell by how crowded a con is by going to get a hot dog or something basic at lunchtime. If the hot dog line is 15 deep, it's packed. Yeah. If the hot dog's like, I'm not eating a hot dog at a con, but if it's 15 deep, it's packed.
Yeah.
Food lines don't lie.
Yeah. What about sale prices at cons compared to what you're seeing sells otherwhere or other places? Because cons have always been notorious for prices to be higher than normal anywhere else. Yeah. What have you guys been seeing on that level? Has that changed?
I think prices at cons are still usually high. I think a lot of dealers, I've set up a shows and I put myself just a smidge higher just because it's like the extra cost of actually having to set up at that booth, right? Because you've got, sometimes you got to pay drayage. You've got to do, you're buying the booth. You got to get, you're there on your feet for 8 hours, 12 hours. Hot dogs are expensive as hell now. Right. So all those little things add up. So you tend to like, all right, maybe I can get an extra $10 out of this book. I'll put it up for 40 instead of 30 or, 45 instead of 35. But people are, I'm always of the motion. If you want to dicker with me, like, let's go, man. Like I'll knock off a couple bucks.
Hey,
like we can
make a deal. Cash is king. Hey, this is 25. I'll give you $20 right here or 20. It's sold every time. Right. Every time.
Yeah. And the funny thing about cons, we all know where the biggest sales come from. It's pre-con opening up their doors, right? That's where the most action is going on.
Oh yeah.
No matter what, the most action goes on between dealers and tables is pre-door opening. And obviously the last day too. So
there was a period of time though, Jesse, and I know everybody here knows this. The conventions wanted a bigger taste of that. And I want to say it was pretty much the Fan Expo model, the Wizard model, a bunch of these models where, hey, we're going to have everybody line up outside and we're going to have a giant merch booth outside the convention floor. I know Dallas Fan Expo had 2 giant ones plus one inside when I was there 2 years ago.
It was there last weekend.
Yeah. And it just seems like the conventions decided they wanted to get all that loose change before they even let people in the doors.
Sure.
And it'd be different if the booth prices were going down at that same time, but the booth prices are going astronomically higher.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a second, I'm paying you more for you to corral my customers outside in front of your merch booth. And I literally got to a point where I was like, yeah, I don't want to pay you money for you to fleece my customers before they get it to even see me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't feel the same about show selling show merch. I have no problem with it. Like, does not bug me, because the person who's going to buy a Fan Expo Dallas T-shirt is not going to buy.
Right.
He's not there to buy my $40.
No, but Clutch, right? If you forget, they started producing high levels of those foil variants, and it started with the
buy those
Batman
trash books.
retreads.
Go buy those trash books. Like you're not
Well,
trying to buy the good stuff.
They had some nice ones in Dallas. And they also had some really old ones. I'm like, how is this thing not sold out? And they had a big fat stack.
Because they had to do 3,000 print run, and those were 5,000.
Right, exactly. Well, look at San Diego Con, how they try to police no dealers could buy before the show opens, yet there's still 100 of us in line an hour before the doors open, right? Yeah. And Shawn knows that too. So it's very interesting, the con life, when you get into the con life, the groups that you're hanging out with at dinner, just as important as probably anything else at a convention is where you go afterwards.
Bar. I mean, some people drink, some people don't, but you have to be at the bar. You can be watching the Celtics were playing the Mavericks, so you can watch the sports. Most people drink, some people don't, but that's where all the industry guys are. I've got more deals, more contacts. Let's do a cover.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a cover this weekend, and it's like, okay.
I think one of the biggest changes that I've seen recently at with the cons and live selling is that live selling has brought more retailers and creators together, because you're doing these live sales with Rose Besh, Marat Michaels, this and that. You're coming together. You're sitting down for a couple hours. You're meeting these creators for the first time, and you're getting that networking straight through your live sale now, which is amazing. Was this the first time that you, a lot of the guys that you guys have on, Marat, Rose Besh, is this like the first time that you've met a lot of these people doing these sales?
I've known Marat for a while. First time I spoke to the Rose, because she's like Jenny Friesen. The head's always down, and it's really tough to approach. Maria Wolf.
Yeah, Maria Wolf. Yeah,
she's different. She's talking, laughing jokes. But we had Pablo Villalobos on, and his agent goes, I don't know. I go, no, trust me, he'll do great. But I'm literally like, what book is this? And he drew the cover. Oh, that's Harley Quinn 32. I'm like, oh my goodness. And his wife afterwards thanked me. He goes, oh my God, that is the best show. Thank you so much for taking Paulo and doing a show. He was amazing. But I gave him layup after layup. Like, oh, are you serious? You drew this? Well, duh. He spent 16 hours drawing it, so he knows the answer. But
yeah. And
the hour goes by quick. Rose, that was the fastest hour of my life. We had David Sanchez on Saturday. He was super, super nervous. And I'm like, is this your hometown? And obviously we know he lives in Dallas. And is there good barbecue in this area? He goes, oh yeah, there's really good barbecue in here. But he has a brand new book that sold out instantly. He did the 50 Cent at C2E2, and he has a bunch of projects he mentioned. He just killed it. He was really, really, really nervous, and thanked me after, because that was the best hour of my life. So
now, did you do these at their booths, or did you have a setup somewhere? Is eBay Live have a place kind of like what Not did?
Yeah, eBay, A&Z, Ali, and Webster's Well, they're like the main point guys for getting the table. It was easy. A&Z is located in Texas, and he brings his computer tech guy. That's the most important thing. He brings Saul. He brings his tech guy. Like this show doesn't work unless Bryan checks all the wires. We have a little 5-minute pregame, make sure the microphone's working. Because we learn at Heroes Con, if you don't have a hard line, you're dead. Everybody's like, you on the moon? I can't see the book. It's fuzzy, it's grainy, and you're going to get crappy sales when no one can see the book. So it's trial and error. So this week at Heroes Con, they're not in charge of the table, got all new equipment, and they better test that stuff out like you won't believe. Because on a live show, I couldn't watch the David Sanchez show on my phone. I had no Wi-Fi. I couldn't send a text.
Well, that was the funny thing about my blow up. That was eBay Live's debut at the exact same show, almost the exact same time, and nobody had a problem with eBay Live's tech. And meanwhile, Whatnot increased the number of people they were going to have there, and nobody had service. And I'm like, how did eBay Live just show you up the first time they showed up?
Money.
Yeah. I mean, it's conventions are so expensive, and I learned this when I was doing the Skybound stuff. If we need an internet for the booth for the weekend of San Diego Comic-Con, it's $8,000 to get a hard line to make sure you've got enough to handle all the stuff you've got to do and not have any worries, right? So you pay up to make sure you do it. So when you do these shows, like, you can't rely on the free visitor Wi-Fi or the paid exhibitor Wi-Fi. I did a show with CGC at C2E2. We were in the hotel, and I had paid for my room internet, which I paid like the $18 a day for the high speed one. There, one of the guys from the hotel was like, "Oh, you can get on to our private one." And he's like, "Oh, cool." I was like, "This is going to be the jam." Puts on there. It was 5 times slower than the one I was paying for. I was like, "Dude, what are you doing?" So, it's all about that. And so you find the spots where, eBay, for the show in Dallas, eBay, I think they covered the cost. I mean, it's a lot of money, but they covered the cost of the hardline internet for their booths. So they were able to run the shows as smooth as possible.
So, A&Z and Webster paid for the booth. eBay paid for the hardline.
Yeah.
So their booth, they brought in Sajjad Shah to be there. And, but still, things happen. There's supposed to be a turtle drop. The turtle book never showed up. It's supposed to be there on Thursday. Didn't get there Thursday. Didn't get there Friday. Guaranteed be there Saturday. Didn't get there Saturday. Didn't get there Sunday. They got there Monday, but guess what? The show's over. So you live and learn.
Shawn, I have a question for you. Yeah. So when you're doing live streaming for Skybound, we get that and awesome, cool, and you got this fan base that is there. When you started doing it by yourself, was there a confidence level you had to get to from not having that big brand and all of a sudden it was yourself? Or did you just slide right into it?
That's a good question. I mean, yes and no. I think I've always kind of had a bit of confidence. I was a radio DJ for 20 something years ago, and so I have always been kind of comfortable talking on.
What was your handle again?
Uncle Daddy.
Uncle Daddy.
Can you take out Big Clutch up at Uncle Daddy there?
Yeah, Uncle Daddy. Real Rock 95 KHOP, baby.
Oh, you still ripping out, man.
That was WQBR.
Michigan University. I knew I had confidence in being able to do that stuff, but not having like the backstop of like the Skybound stuff and whatever. But luckily, I mean, having worked there for a decade plus, I have a lot of that stuff. So I still I can sell those books. I have so much more confidence in selling Skybound and Image stuff than I do selling Marvel and DC. And so like, for me, like Drew said earlier, like watching, on Wednesday's show, watching the Stein's top 10, I watch those shows as much as I can just because I'm trying to catch up on a decade of, comics knowledge that I don't have because I was doing all the stuff with, The Walking Dead and Invincible specifically, so I've got my lack of confidence comes from that stuff. So when I feel like I need a boost, like this weekend, I did a Hasbro show or an Energon Universe show. Like, I know all these books hands down. So I was just like able to just kind of crank them out and do them. And then when you do that show, I'm like, oh, fuck, I knew all these things. So
Well, I was surprised when I first started seeing you perform on Whatnot live cells, because I knew you from being Kirkman's right hand man, Skybound, and I mean, as the mouthpiece PR guy, the marketing guy, you can't ask for a better front man than Robert, because when you would have a Skybound event, Robert would just pop right in the middle of the crowd of retailers and be like,
"Oh yeah,"
it was a mile a minute, and you didn't have to do anything. You were literally just the And so when I saw you first perform, I was like, wow, I wonder if Clutch actually can do this, because he's kind of Hodor when it comes to at the company, And then sure enough,
that's why you got the name Big Clutch, right?
Yeah,
Big Daddy.
I mean, and that stuff, honestly, like talking to like Robert stuff is it's always fun. Like to, I learned a lot from him too. And in just in the years of working together and how he deals with, answering questions and approaching stuff. And so you think about, all right, how do I quickly craft this answer or this statement without throwing someone under the bus or making sure that I'm not like, saying something I shouldn't say, because we had to do it like when we knew stuff about the Walking Dead show. Like I couldn't say, hey, I know so and so is going to die next season or who's going to be showing up. Like you can't say that stuff in interviews, and so we have to think about that when when someone asks you a question, you're like, I don't want to talk shit about. Sorry for swearing, but I don't want to talk crap about another publisher or another artist or whatever. I don't want to throw out that stuff. So you kind of you talk ways around that stuff in interviews and stuff. And I learned a lot of that from Robert for sure.
Yeah. It's amazing how you have to come up with this stuff on the fly when you're in front of a bunch of people, and how it changes, how shows are done. It's very interesting how that works. And there's certain people, like you said, that can just get up in front of 1,000 people, not have a worry about talking in front of 1,000 people. And other people are like, yeah, I'd be better off just being in front of a camera by myself, Yeah,
so or just, I have a friend who, had to give a presentation once, and he was like, I'm having a panic attack. I cannot do it. Sure. It's just in front of your coworkers or whatever. And so, different levels to everything. So, yeah, but honestly, having good customers and viewers in chat helps out a ton too, because you can like in your brain, I'm like, hey, I know I'm going to talk to Joe. Joe loves Walking Dead. He buys it all the time. I can throw out stuff to him if I see his name in chat, or if I see if I see Three Rivers, I'll be like, hey man, what's up? I know your stuff. I know certain people. You can tag them each time, and then that way you feel like you're talking to one person as talking to dozens or hundreds or whatever. So it makes it
always try to mention some of the people in the chat, and even people who are just here to troll you, like Niner Gang. I'm like, hey, Niner Gang, you watched my Dodgers winning tonight? He's like, but you're getting a reaction. We always jump on shows. We jump on Jesse's show. We drop in Rabbit Comics. We call them Squirrel Boy, Squirrel Girl. What's going on? Did anyone FaceTime you today falling over fences? And that's a story I can't mention here, but they're laughing, and they promote other shows, and we're always trying to promote other eBay shows. And
I think that's a really good piece of advice is to say, hey, you pay attention to your chat, especially in the live sales, because these are guys that come back time after time. That's a really good piece of advice.
78 points articulation. He's been following me forever, and I just shout him out. But it's good to see you, buddy. And
he used to be on my Whatnot feeds all the time.
Give him a follow on IG. His Instagram is awesome.
Yeah, he's got great photography skills with action figures and toys and stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So that was a good piece of advice. What is some piece of advice, some advice that you guys wish you had, or what is some advice that you can give people who are live selling, getting into the live selling stuff that they should know doing this?
I think a big one is like don't check your ego, right?
Yep.
And it's going to what we talked about earlier. If a book sells for less than it should, it hurts, right? You're like, oh man, I know I could have sold this book for $200 or whatever. Or I had, when I was at C2E2, I had a Daniel Warren Johnson book that was like, I know this was like it's a $800 9.8. I'm like, I know this book's got a remark. It's a 1 in 100. I'm like, oh, it glitched and sold for $3. And I was like, you know what? Like, F it. Like, sold. It goes to you. And everyone chats like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, that guy won it for $3. And like, the guy who bought it was super stoked. And he bought like 4 other books from the show. So it's like, he may have bought more. So I think like being able to say, hey, you know what? Like, I get to give a gift to somebody like in a cheap price of the book. That's awesome. I'm passing.
You're gonna remember that forever.
I didn't pay that much for the book.
Yeah, know your margins.
Sometimes you buy books for $2-3 or whatever. I bought it for 20 grades for grading costs for $30, like 100. Cool, man. Like we both get a share. And like at the end of the day, like that buyer is going to come back. Like just hook your people up.
And so are all the people that were in the show watching it live when that happened. They're going to come back, right? Because they know you have integrity. You're not going to go, no, we can't do that. We're going to run this again, which most people would do.
Most important thing, be yourself. Don't be fake. Just be yourself. I mean, I wish I could sell like Rage Theo. I wish I could sell by him, but hey, I can't do that. I can't sell like Jesse. I mean, I can't sell like Dennis. I have to be myself. And we call ourselves the world's dumbest retailer 20 years in a row. We win the award. We made a magical award for ourselves. No one's going to get upset about me becoming the dumbest retailer on the planet. Yeah. But if I say I'm the best, I'm like, oh, he's not the best. But we're the dumbest. And that's the way we roll.
Yeah. The best part is you are actually one of the smartest I've ever met.
No, we start 1 in 1,000 at $1. That's pretty stupid. Yeah, we're gonna keep that word dumbest retailer on the planet. You guys can't have it, so you guys are top of the line.
Well, I think the biggest thing in live streaming, and this is any type of e-commerce, is no sale is over or done. Just because you get paid means nothing. It's make sure you ship that product out on the time you say you're going to ship it. That's the number one most important thing in live streaming is have that responsibility and that integrity. Monday morning, I got up at 5 o'clock so I could get everything out to the post office at 5 o'clock. You have to have that integrity level, and you have to be prepared. You can't say to someone, well, I was out of supplies, so I didn't get your stuff out.
Drew, do you remember?
Or I sell too many books. This is the number one thing right now is I sell too many books to ship my stuff out on time. That's not acceptable. So ship your stuff.
What do you got, Dennis?
Well, no, if everybody knows I have a shipping department and I don't touch the shipping, they do all of that for me and they ship thousands of packages every.
That's why they're so nice.
Exactly. Yeah. But I stumbled during the Whatnot days. I stumbled upon what I thought was the winning strategy for doing cons, especially for slab books, was taking photos of the slabs and having color representations at the show. So that way I could sell on a Friday or I could sell on a Saturday live. And then rather than have to go back to my hotel and carry shipping supplies with me, I had a shipping department that would pack it all up on Friday night and it would actually go in the mail Saturday. A lot of people got the books by Monday morning.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't carrying all of these books with me to, Dallas or Orlando. I was carrying just a piece of paper. Shipping department.
Yeah.
Saw those and said, okay, yep, that's the one. All right, ship this out, ship that out. And I could go have, a fabulous dinner and relax and have a couple drinks with other retailers. Yeah. And I honestly think that's a strategy anybody can still use when they're on the road live selling.
Oh, that's such a good, and it's such a good idea, man. I'm kind of jealous about it too.
But my pet peeve is when, like, say the 4th of July lands on a Tuesday. So you got Saturday, Sunday, and July 3rd is on Monday. Well, trust me, if you go to the post office, 3/4 of the post office is sick that day. So nothing's going to be shipped out, and the 4th is the thing, and the July 5th, they might have a hot dog hangover. So literally the post office is closed for 5 days. You got some of their, I won last Friday, and tracking still shows it's still in your location. Like, bro, nobody's working. Yeah. It happens near Christmas time, New Year's Day. There's certain holidays like Memorial Day, Labor Day. There's a couple extra days. They're half strength.
Yeah,
it happens.
So the stuff you sell at the conventions, you're taking back home and then shipping?
Yeah, Dallas.
Okay.
I came home on Sunday. That stuff had to be in the mail by Monday, unless they got CGC. That took a little extra, but I had to send that thing to CGC, send them a different book, so I get the tracking. But that CGC has to be correct. I mean, I can't send a CGC label without the info, and then my guy has to look at it, press it, and make sure we get the highest grade. That adds an extra day to the. I want to make sure they get 10 O's instead, maybe a 9.6 because there's a big fat fingerprint on the foil. Which happens a lot. You get a foil book, you get a fingerprint.
Yep.
It's going to affect the grade.
Yeah, the shipping stuff is like it's such an important piece of that thing. Like I have one order from C2E2 that I still don't have the CGC books back from. I've gotten everything else in, but I'm waiting on 2 blue label books. And I am feel every time I open up eBay and I see that one order there waiting to be shipped, and I'm like, I'm so anxious. And I finally had to call up the chain. I was like, hey dude, can you check on this thing? And so they're like, we're gonna track it down and find it for you. But it's like, I love to I am only myself. I saw like Three Rivers mention that he has his LCS kind of ship their books, which is a great idea.
Right.
That's such a good idea. But I'm just me. So I do my books and then I got to ship out myself the next day or whatever. But we're kind of pretty lucky. We're both kind of close to the LAX airport. I'm super close, and my post office honestly must go from there right to the airport, and it's on a plane, because sometimes I get people I'll ship a book on Saturday and they'll be on the East Coast and they'll have it in their hands on Tuesday, and they're like, how did this get to me?
We're 15 minutes. We're 15 minutes from Detroit Airport, and our packages go from our center straight over to that UPS hub and the FedEx hub over there, and it's on a plane usually by 6 p.m. if we hit the times right.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I love that too. One of the guys who now helps me out with my e-commerce stuff. That's how it happened. He got a couple books, and it's funny. I used the post office near me. He'd get the books. He's on the East Coast 2 days. I think he's in Kentucky or North Carolina. And then I dropped the package off at a different post office here in LA. And that one it took a few extra days. And he's like, dude, where's my book? Where's my book? I'm like, dude, it's coming. I guarantee you I dropped it off. Just a different post office.
You use the one near me?
I use the one over in Culver City. So
Culver City.
I know. Getting coffee.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to both of you, because I know Clutch. I know the answer to this because your back wall tells volumes.
Oh no.
But I know where Clutch is deeply rooted in pop culture. Our mutual love of G.I. Joe and Japanese robots, trading cards from the 70s and 80s. I remember Clutch posted something, and I was like, hey, I happen to have that. Are you interested?
Yes.
Giant size X-Men 1 coverless. Yeah. And
0.5.
0.3 if you go through CBCS. They're a little harder.
That would have been better.
Yeah. But where's your nostalgia from, Drew? Because I don't know a lot about it.
Well, I'm still upset you sold your Micronauts to Rob Liefeld, so I didn't talk to you for 5 years.
I still got plenty more, baby. I put on the International Micronauts Convention, the first ever.
I'm older than all you guys, so my generation, his toys was G.I. Joe.
This is the greatest generation.
So I was, I saw Star Wars in the theaters. Well, you guys did not. So.
I saw it in the theaters. Come on, I'm not that.
Well, you're. Maybe, yeah.
So, my dad took me as an infant. Yeah, I would be so mad at him if he did that now.
Yeah, that is.
I didn't see Star Wars until '79 for the re-release that came with the special sneak preview of Empire at the end of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I saw Star Wars at Grumman's Chinese Theater, because back in the day there was only 28 theaters showing Star Wars, because he wouldn't let any theater show it. You had that sound system. There was only 28 theaters in the United States in 1977 that had the sound system. Now everyone takes it for granted. Nobody had it back then. So when a movie only comes out of 28 theaters, everyone's like, how come Star Wars is out for a year? Because no one can show the dumb thing.
Yep.
I mean, we went there at the birthday show. They sing Happy Birthday to Star Wars. So we just saw it again. So back then, we grew up kind of not very rich. There's a bunch of us, but movies were a treat.
Yes.
So
what were you into when you first got into comics? What brought you to comic books?
probably middle school, everyone's reading the X-Men 137, 138, 139, 140. I mean, it's what a time to start reading X-Men. Those are the best issues of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, like legendary run. I mean, it was easy. Back then, it was 35 cents, 40 cents. 7-Eleven sold those things. Slurpee was 25 cents. The Slurpee cups all had the action figures on it. We wanted every one. We were like bummed when we got. I mean, my brothers would laugh at me if I got Robin. You're like, you got Robin. I'm like, I don't want this cup. I throw the damn thing away. That cup's probably worth a bunch of money now, but I didn't want the Robin cup. So, but back then, comics were sold at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
That was the treat. We're gonna get a Slurpee. We're gonna get a comic. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, you guys. I want to say thank you for coming on today, and it was nice to finally get Drew to come on with us and hang out with us. It took a big clutch and his dog to get Drew on here.
Well, yeah. Well, you probably saw the dog. The dog's amazing. Yeah. I mean, she just have an interview with Moxley the whole time. It's the highest ratings ever.
One of the cutest dogs you're ever going to see in your entire life, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we're going to try to get him on here.
You get tall.
You get tall.
Tall.
Come on,
up. Hey, up.
Yeah, he's not going to want to do it.
Yeah, he's getting shy. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
One of the best looking dogs in the game.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, happens again. But there he is.
Look at that Snoopy dog. Yeah. So we'll have these guys on more. What's the next con and event you guys are going to be at?
I'll be at Heroes Con this weekend, North Carolina. Dallas was lots of fun, but I think Heroes Con is. Yeah. Still don't know what's going to happen.
What's your favorite? Before we let you go, from both of you, you're con guys. You go to them all. What's your favorite to go to?
San Diego.
Well, I was going to answer. My favorite and my worst is San Diego. San Diego.
At the same time,
you love it, but you hate it.
Yeah.
See, and that's to me. That's why I love C2E2. It's to me, it's 80% of a San Diego, 70% of a San Diego, but 0% of the San Diego hassle.
Yes.
Well, you need drama in your life. San Diego is a beast. I mean, San Diego, I have to watch all these shows for the rest of the week. I'm like, I missed that. I mean, this year, Deadpool 3 drops. Obviously, we have all these shows. Murat talks to Rob Liefeld. Murat was talking to Rob. He goes, "Oh, I gotta hang up. We got Margot Robbie on the line." He's all, well, patch me through. I want to talk to her. He's all, sorry, click. And he hung up on his best friend Murat to talk to Margot. I'm like, so you're saying we have a chance to get Margot Robbie on EV Live? He's all, hey, why not? But awesome. I mean, Rob's in Italy right now. You guys had Rob on the show. He's the most amazing ambassador for comics. Love him, hate him, but you're going to get an absolute. Yeah. You're going to get some education. I mean, he ought to be a teacher. I mean, he should be teaching the local college down the street. He should be.
Yeah.
And he hasn't forgotten a single thing in his entire roller coaster ride.
He has an elephant memory. Unfortunately, I also have an elephant memory. Sometimes it's a curse. Sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to use it this weekend, though. I might be upset.
Yeah, you'll have a good weekend. And then we've got San Diego Comic-Con coming up. We're both going to be there.
Got some books.
I'll be working. We're doing stuff with eBay Live, a couple shows. I'm doing. I partnered up with Skybound and Top Cow to do some variants for the show with eBay. So we're going to have a Witchblade variant at the show. We're going to have Destro.
Can you see your artist?
Scarlet, not yet. Okay. I'm waiting until next week. Okay. Transformers, Void Rivals, a Frankenstein Ash Can, which would be super fun, and then another little super secret book. So it's going to be a good time. A bunch of shows. Hopefully, have a couple different artists on our eBay Lives. I'll also actually be on the show floor, working up with Chris Rupp on a little booth space. So we'll have
Chris is amazing. I saw him again this weekend. I don't know how he works the booth by himself. That means he doesn't go to the bathroom. He doesn't get lunch.
He's got trucker bones, man.
There you go.
Guy's a legend. The guy's OG.
Yeah.
Is he more OG than you, Jesse?
We started actually at the same time. I think I got beat by 2 years.
No, I think
he started at like 13, I want to say.
Yeah, I started at 12, but I think we're the same age too, so that's okay. There's plenty of room, just like Pudding. So.
Well, I can't wait for San Diego this year. We're all going to be there together. Everybody on this show. There's a lot of friends that are going to be there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So
just bring your most comfortable tennis shoes. There's no such thing as a short walk, because even if you get dropped off by Uber or the train, it is a long walk. So if you guys start walking right now and get in shape, because
I once bought a brand new pair of shoes before a San Diego, and I kid you not, the ball of my feet ripped through that by the end of San Diego. And I was like, all right.
What kind of shoes were those, man?
They were cheap.
XJ 900s.
Yeah, you gotta pay up, my friend. I mean, hey, look at your phone. You know, most iPhones has your health, how many steps you get in. If you're not doing 20,000 steps a day, you're not doing it right. And 20,000 is like minimal. Minimal.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much. We're gonna get you out of here.
Awesome. Thanks for having us on, guys.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned from you guys, all these people on here, is, and especially Drew, he talks about this all the time. There's two very big important things in this, and that is the two eyes. Drew, what are the two eyes?
It's the most important thing in the comic book retailer: integrity and inventory.
Yep.
If you don't have inventory, it doesn't matter if you have inventory. I mean, you got to have integrity. If they don't trust you, you're dead in the water.
Amen.
Because
And,
people, I mean, we're sending these books to send to CGC, you know, hundreds of dollars of books. If they don't trust us, we're dead, you know.
Right.
So
I just want to say,
Big Leg says, get your swimming trunks ready. That means one thing: 10.0s for another customer.
There you go.
And
I just want to say one thing. I am waiting for a Uncle Daddy exclusive or variant from Shawn coming out soon. So,
well, he has his cards. They don't say Uncle Daddy. Show him a card.
Oh
yeah. Oh, you do have your cards. That's right. Uncle Daddy cards. There you go.
They don't say Uncle Daddy.
Cool.
No.
He's dead.
No, Uncle Daddy's alive and well. Well, thank you again. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for so much for what you guys do for community. I guys watch you guys every week. All the guests. Keep crushing it.
Hell yeah. Thanks, you guys. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Much love, you
Awesome.
guys. Wow.
Awesome.
That's what I'm talking about. You can't beat that. That was a great thing to finally get Drew on camera, and of course Big Clutch, one of our best friends here at the channel, always helping us out.
I think the one thing that people need to understand, because there's a lot of negativity in the comic book world for sellers and all that, but when you really get into me and Dennis's world, it's a very, very excellent community when you get down to it.
It goes back to those Gary Reed principles that I always harp on. Give your knowledge freely. Your knowledge and experience. And like I said, I didn't know any way to pull off the Anaheim Star Wars celebration. And Drew, like I said, jumped right in. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll give you a ride here to pick up tables. I'll drop off this grid, on setup day. And, he came in clutch for me, and he didn't have to at all. But, these kind of guys are the guys that you want on your team. And the team isn't about anyone making money off of the other members of the team. It's about all of us succeeding and elevating the game.
Yeah. Well, great first half. But you guys, there's 50 of you watching live. We got a second half to go, and our guest is here. Before we bring him in, we want to give a quick little review on his stuff. Jesse, why don't you talk about our next guest?
So our next guest has been doing this for a long time. He's part of the 90s, which is so funny because we are driven by these 90 guys. If we didn't have the 1990 guys, creators, I don't know where we'd be in the comic book world. Great steward, really understands the business, working from doing Korn cover albums and Witchblade and Todd McFarlane Productions. He has done pretty much everything, and he is probably the most advanced creator we have in the comic book industry.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I really geeked out over this creator's one of his most recent products or books, The Marked. If you guys haven't read The Marked yet, do yourself a favor, go check it out. One of the most beautiful books out there this day, and one of the covers specifically, number 9, we called cover of the year a few years ago. So let's go ahead and bring in Bryan Haberlin. Bryan, thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, let me know if
Brian.
my hotel, my internet connection might be a little bit. You guys let me know.
You sound great. Everything looks great too. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate this. How's everything going?
I haven't seen these two muggle heads for ages, so it's delighted to see.
I think it was
guys.
five years ago at C2E2 was the last time we ran into each other.
Yep, I think so. But I love both these guys. Again, knuckleheads. I say affectionately.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree. I love that term. That's a term that is not used that much anymore these days, but it's one of the best terms ever, and that's knucklehead. We need to use that more. And so I agree. I love
the fact too that these are two guys that I can reference anything in comics and they will understand.
Amen.
Because I was the kid from high school. I had my best friends that were like, because back then we're talking about late 70s, and I was always the kid that drew, and stuff. And I want to do some cool sci-fi and stuff. And back then, the only options were really like there were no movies that were worth anything that were comics or whatever and stuff. And I had Brian Holguin, Kevin Holguin, his older brother, Brian, who I've written a bunch of stuff and created stuff with, and my friend Kirk Dilbeck. And it's like, all right, so what's cool out there? And it's like, they were like cherry picking all the stuff from comics. It's like, and they pulled it, and they wouldn't take good care of. These were not bagged and board books. Okay. These were read books, right?
Well loved.
Here's the Avengers Annual with, Adam Warlock, the Soul Gem. Here's the Adam Warlocks, and I just was like, no. Okay, more. Give me more, and it's like, and they would just cherry pick all this shit. And it's like, oh my God, comics are the coolest thing ever. And it's like, okay, what else you got? It's like, well, there's this other one called Daredevil. What's that about? Well, it's this blind lawyer who fights crime at night. It's like, well, that can't be fucking good, right? And it was Frank Miller's on Daredevil. And it was like, oh my God.
that Jim Starlin era. Woo.
And like I've told people before, my first experience was, I was at the very first San Diego Comic Con, the El Cortez, we would drive down. So I'm from Southern California, so we just drive down. And I remember not the first one, but it was like the second or third at the old convention center. And Artist Alley was John Byrne in his X-Men run. Sitting next to him was Chris Claremont with an actual typewriter in front of him. On the other side of him was George Perez. Yep. On the other side, Terry Austin was there. And then the new kid on the block, this nice little young kid who just started something Marvel Previews, Bill Sienkiewicz. Yeah. And they were drawing and laughing and singing together. It's like, I want to do that for a living. That looks great.
Do you know who the host of that show was?
No.
It was Elvira was the host of that show. She was the main host for that show. That's the first year I went, was 82. So that was a great time. But the funny thing that you said about not bag and boarding wasn't even a thing in comics. The only reason why you bag and boarded something was to put it on the wall. So you
boxes weren't a thing.
Comic.
Comic book long boxes weren't a thing. They would just have stacks of books just raw sitting on tables.
Yep.
So what was your first book you actually bought to read? Do you remember?
First book? I was exposed. I remember really being exposed early on a road trip to the Grand Canyon, like you do, family road trip.
Yeah, sure.
Thing. I was a little kid, and it was a Kurt Swan Superboy, I think.
Wow.
And even I'm such a freaking crazy, stupid artist. Even then, it was like, I didn't really feel the vibe of Kurt Swan.
A lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and that didn't hook me. And it wasn't until high school. And like I said, my friends who were like, my friend Kirk Dilbeck had up on his wall all the best of the best covers, up on his wall. So he had, the golden ROMs, he had all these. He was a huge Gil Kane fan from and thank God, because I got to meet and hang out with Gil back when he was alive and stuff through my friend. But all the cool Gil Kane covers and all this stuff. And it's like, again, I was sucked in by the best of the best. Right. Even on that first show, like I was telling you about, which I kind of treasure, and I always kind of pattern, because usually when I do shows, very rarely do I do commissions, and very rarely do I do, like sit down and do it. But I will definitely do a little headshot, and that's all from Jim Starlin, because Jim used to do those. I have a Pip and an Adam Warlock that when I was a teenager, he did for me for nothing. I was like, here you go. And it's like, that's so cool.
So one of the things,
and other stuff, but
one of the things that I want to add to Jesse's introduction, and this is, I don't know if you remember this. You and I met one of the first time. I can't remember if it was Vegas or if it was C2E2.
It was Chicago, and it was
Chicago. And it was the Retailer Summit that was attached to it. And you were like, oh, hey, you got to check out this augmented reality thing that I'm doing with this book Anomaly. And I'm like, oh, what's this about? And I go up to your booth. And meanwhile, I had no idea your storied career prior to this. This is just the cool dude that I was smoking with and drinking at the bar with. And I go up to your booth, and you literally blew my freaking mind with what you were doing. And Bryan, I shit you not, I'm very hard to impress. I don't know if you know this. Ever since then, I feel like you are 5 to 10 years ahead of everyone else in your community. Can you talk about where it's clearly something you intentionally do to push yourself.
I've always been the guy that, so I had my first job offer to pencil at Marvel when I was 18. From John Romita Sr. and Jim Shooter at a San Diego Comic-Con. And it was, there was no internet back then. You had to move to New York. I was a Southern California boy, and it was $35 a page to start. And they said, man, and we're not guaranteeing you work. And it's like, okay, so I'm going to go to film school instead. So I have a master's degree in communications from Loyola Marymount out here. But I've been using, as soon as the computers became a thing, it's like the Amiga days, I had an Amiga computer. Right. I've been 3D modeling for 40 freaking years now, back when you used to have to draw every single freaking polygon, and there were none of these tools that make it easy that exist now. And I always thought, but it's always how I approach everything. It's like, why are we still doing it this way?
Yes.
Can we do it another way? Maybe we can do it another way, And my first jobs was in comedy and drama series development at Lorimar Television back in the day, and then current programs at Warner Brothers, and worked on Family Matters, Perfect Strangers, Knots Landing, all this stuff. But in my office, right, because I was working with David Zucker, was the guy who I was working with. And in my outer office, I had, my work computer, and then I had my Amiga over here, and I was working on the new art stuff that you could do and all that stuff. And I kind of kept working on that. And it's like, my wife was like, she was also working there for a producer who was the queen of MOWs, Movies of the Week, for people who don't get that term anymore.
Which is now Hallmark, Hallmark Channel.
And she said, get me out of here. And so go down to San Diego Comic-Con, portfolio in hand, get rejected like everybody else, right? Portfolio in hand, get rejected. And then a dear friend of mine who no longer is with us, Rod Underhill, who actually helped a lot of people in the industry in legal, because he was a lawyer or two and stuff like that. And he said, "Do you want to share a booth with me in the small press area in San Diego?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure.
What year is this?
This is 1993. And so I had this big inkjet print of Green Lantern that was penciled ink and colored by me, with a 3D modeled power battery behind him and 3D modeled wings, glowing wings behind him. And I had a CRT monitor that was, this wide and about twice as deep and weighed probably 150 pounds on the desk. And it had a CG spawn that I did, that spawn coming down, this cape going across the floor. And everyone and their mother offered me work that year. And it was Mark Silvestri coming by. And it's funny because there was that gap. You know how it is. Like, you get into comics for a while, you do something else, right? College usually kind of gets in the way to a certain degree because there's all this cool stuff and women and da-da-da-da. And Mark's career was kind of in that window. So I didn't know who Mark was.
Wow.
But you can definitely see him coming because he's 6 inches taller than everyone else.
Yeah. Mark and his brother Serge came by, and Mark saw what I was doing, and Mark was like, "Don't talk to anybody else." And then, of course, John Nee comes by later, and it's like, and if you don't know who John Nee is, John ran Wildstorm for Jim and ran Jim's company for a while. And I was kind of figuring in the back of my head, it's like, oh, well, it's homage. So we're all together. So we can all work together, right? It's like, but that's not how that, of course, turned out. And so I started Top Count. But I didn't want to be a colorist. That was absolutely not. But I figured, okay, this is the end, right? And Mark matched my salary and my salary from Warner Brothers, and we moved down to San Diego from Santa Monica, and I started the computer, and we, figured all this shit out. It's like almost all the production methods that are currently used are mine, and mine and John Nee and Clydeen Nee. If you know Clydeen, and if you guys, I'm going to put out a shout out right now. Clydeen needs help. If you don't know Clydeen, she's gone through some really bad health problems. She has a GoFundMe. It's on my Facebook page and another dozen people's Facebook pages. She had to have an amputation. She's been a huge advocate for comic book artists through the decades, and she could use everybody's help. She's a wonderful person.
Well, we'll definitely add that to the chat for sure.
How do you spell her first name?
Clydeen. Cyldeene. Clyde. No,
okay. I'm looking it up. I got it. Yeah, I got it. So we're gonna drop this in the chat.
She could use some help right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. So
she's
awesome.
She's been a huge. I mean, San Diego Comic Con keeps restricting freaking the Artist Alley shit and all that. She's been the only person.
Those Funko Pops aren't going to sell themselves, Brian. You got to ban that into the free space back in that corner.
But again, she was there at the very beginning. She had the film output back then. There was film output, which didn't exist later, and we figured all this crap out. It's like, what ink levels do we use for which paper, and what's the conversion process, and yada yada. And that's still what everyone uses.
But I talk to these guys about you when you took over your run of covers for Spawn. It was what issue did it start at?
45.
2006. So
I did. No. We did. I did. To be fair, it goes back to 25 because there was the year that all the Image owners swapped the books.
Okay.
And that's when we Top Cow did Spawn.
Right.
And
okay.
That was kind of my impromptu demo for Todd. And So let me jump back. So this is kind of a funny story. So when I was at Warner Brothers still, my buddy's wife was one of the producers on the Spawn animated show. And she introduced me to Terry Fitzgerald, and Terry used to run Todd's company back in the day. And it's like, well, you do a sample. So I did a sample, and it was that Jim Lee Angela piece back in the day. And I colored that up CG, and I there were these kind of nodule things, and I 3D modeled the nodule things and did them, and then sent them off. And Terry was like, yeah, this is cool, and Todd likes it, but can you put back his line work? Like,
yeah.
I took over his line. So there was a chance to work with Todd, and then I didn't get it, and then worked with Mark, and again, and Top Cow was just, I gotta say, I was blessed when I started, because Homage was something that will never exist again. And it was an amazing, it was an open floor plans, and there was like 2 offices that had doors, right? And everything else was open cubicles, right? And so if you weren't an asshole, you could go around and hang out with Scott Williams and have him watch him while he's inking a page and learn. You could, all the new kids that were starting when I was a little bit older, so I was like 29, I think, when I started. But yeah, these new kids, like the brand new kids in the block. So you had Jeff Campbell over in the corner. We had, on Top Cow was Joe Benitez, and it was Dave Finch, and it was,
Mike Turner.
Mike Turner.
Mike was later. Mike was when we moved up to Santa Monica.
Oh, okay.
And Travis Cheris, all these guys and everyone was out to beat everyone else.
Right.
I mean, the faxes that would fly from the different image studios back and forth about, and calling people out on rips and shit like that. But it was this wonderful competitive, driving you forward thing. And again, I have to always say, thank God for Joe Chido, because I knew how to render, but I didn't know shit about color and how it worked. And Joe Chido taught me so much, and then I was so blessed too with, again, like you guys were saying earlier before I came in, the community that was so supportive. When I did Codename Strike Force was the first full book that I did, right? And the king of the hill at that time, Steve Oliff, I remember, gave me a call and said how good it was.
Oh, wow.
And it was so nice to have, the guy he's the king of the hill guy, it's like, and taking the time to call and say, you did a great job. This is the new stuff. This is, what we need and stuff. So, but
yeah, I love that time period.
I learned so much. I learned inking from freaking Scott Williams. I still remember and you guys will know. Remember when Jim was doing those epic pullouts on Wildcats?
Yeah,
so
sure.
So these were 5-page spreads. And they weren't like a continual piece of paper. They were 5 11x17 pieces of paper taped together. Okay. And I still, and Jim did grad speed lines going across, right? And I sat behind Scott with a quill. Okay. And there's no digital shit here. This is a quill dipped in ink. Okay. And Scott was doing grads, speed lines across 5 pages.
Wow.
And I'm like, how do you do that? And again, one of the most important lessons I've ever learned, you have to pretend it's easy.
Yep.
That's a great, that's hard to do. What are you talking about? Pretend it's easy?
The best art lessons I've ever learned in my life.
So Brian, one of the conversations that comes up between you and I at the bar, I think will absolutely destroy Bryan McClay. Tell us about how you joined up with the Wu-Tang Clan.
So I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, it was kind of through the same producer that did the Spawn thing at the end of the day, who were my dear friends, the Horns, Karen and Andy Horn. And they were like, someone's looking to put together a Wu-Tang Clan comic. And it's like, okay, it's like, that sounds cool. And you didn't hear from me, but it's maybe happening. But anyway.
You were telling me that 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. But
that's why I brought it up.
There's counter offers now. But anyway. So it seems like it might actually, and I can't get into details. But,
fingers crossed.
It is looking very, 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 very good.
Brian, when you're talking Wu-Tang, the fingers crossed are in the middle.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes. But yeah, no. So again, we, I went to the meeting with RZA and his crew in a notorious hip hop Hollywood hotel. I still remember. And you guys have seen 30 Rock, right?
Yeah.
So Grizz.com, right? So two big dudes, and RZA's a big dude too, but RZA's entourage dwarfed RZA. It was like five .coms, and I went there with my Witchblade toys and the other stuff, and RZA's one of those guys. If he sees something that looks cool, he's like, that looks cool, So yeah, let's go. It was funny because I'm digging out some of the recent documents that I have, and this is like, it's another side story. It'd be like the best low budget comedy you'd ever have would be the Chicago Wizard World that they were supposed to be at that they didn't show up at. And I found in my things the airplane tickets for all of them for ODB, Method and RZA, with all their real names on them.
Oh, nice.
And I figure that's going to be like in 10 years, I can go on an Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah, get it graded. Get it graded. CG Seed.
But yeah, the story behind that Chicago Wizard World is a great movie in itself.
Oh, I bet.
Very, very cool.
So give us a little, like, what was it that you did to kind of win them over? And then, it was a good solid, 2 years that you did this project with them?
No, it was probably, I guess with the entertainment stuff that was happening there it was about 2 years, but it was a mini series that we did. Clayton Henry did a great job on the artwork. Clayton's on I think one of the Superman books right now. And he's a great guy, great artist. And it was just one of those things that I've always had kind of in my life where I can like go, oh, here's some of my art. I still remember there was like this at back in the early days of SIGGRAPH, there was this brand new software called Live Picture that Kai Kraus, if anyone is an old computer geek, will know Kai Kraus, because it was Kai Kraus Power Tools, which was a big deal back in the early things. He had this new thing called Live Picture because the computers weren't powerful to do, 3,000 by 6,000 pixel stuff. They couldn't do it. And so this would do an approximation of that and then re-res it up later. And I still remember you had to be like someone special to get in and stuff. And there was this at the Beverly Hills Hotel, there was the door you had to get into and stuff. And it was like, well, I want to get into it. And the guy was like, well, why do you want to get into it? And I had my portfolio of stuff. Well, this is what I do. And it's like, okay, you can go in. So I've always been lucky with being able to have, here's a really cool picture. What do you think? Okay, great. Yeah, you're okay. Go ahead.
Yep.
Wow.
So very, very, there's this crazy thing that I'm thinking about here. You got the class of the 90s for creators in the comic book world. So all you guys have become experiencers in the comic book industry. You're influential. Did you think that in 2024 your class of the 90s would still be probably the most influential creators in the comic book industry?
It became evident when, again, because when I started doing this stuff, the only place where I could do art like I wanted to do art was basically sci-fi book covers, right? Because there was no concept art back then, and there was no, high-end, CG movies that were being done. And so if you wanted to do fantasy, if you wanted to do sci-fi, if you wanted to do superheroes, comics was the only place to go. But then all of a sudden, there started to be the other things, and we lost generations of guys that would have been great comic book artists because they're computer game people, they're movie people, and that's, in my opinion, that's why you have some of these people that were top of the pyramid back then who are basically still top of the pyramid. It's like I was just at the Como Comic Fest, which I kind of went to just because I could hang out with guys who I love and I haven't being able to get to, because you go by their booth at San Diego or some big show, they got a gazillion people. It's like getting to hang out with Dave Finch and Bill Sienkiewicz and Frank Cho and just and Frank Quietly but all these people. It's like it's like, again, the problem is now is kind of there's so many of those guys who are top of the pyramid, who have been top of the pyramid, who can't afford to do comics anymore, for the big two.
Right.
They can afford to do them if they have but there's so few people who are entrepreneurial enough to do their own stuff, which is also a problem, so we lose these guys that could drive the industry, but we also, now it's hard to bring in new people because the pay is so freaking sucky at these companies, and yeah, I mean, I hate to bash on them.
Oh, Unfiltered.
Oh, yeah, let's go into Unfiltered. 1 second, Brian. 1 second. Yo, let's do this.
Valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
All right. Start bashing, Brian.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, coming out of Unfiltered, is there a resolve to pay? Or no, that's not how the comic book industry is driven now.
What do you mean resolve?
So getting higher wages, getting people paid a little bit better than what they're getting paid now.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge help because, again, people love to do this stuff, but at a certain point, you can't starve to death. I mean, that was, again, kind of going back to the origin of when I was 18 and I got the first offer to work at Marvel. It's like $35 a page. Yeah, the whole idea of being a starving artist is not the way it should be, especially if they're making money at it,
Right.
But I'm also
the reason
seeing,
Image exists. It's the reason Image exists.
Yeah. But also, things have changed. I mean, and again, I don't care if I work for Marvel and DC again. So, in my experience recently, the guys who were the good and gals that were the good editors, it seems like they didn't teach anything to anybody.
Exploited.
And also it's just it's not functional. It's like they'll be, getting things approved and it's all set. And it's like, we need to go back and redraw all these things because we realized blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, you should have fucking known that,
Right.
What's the matter with you? It's like, and the other thing I keep always pointing out is like, there aren't any writer artists anymore as editors. And that's what the industry really, really needs.
Well, because they don't pay editors either. They're taking interns and promoting them to editors because they're basically a step up from slave wages.
Well, I think that the most important part of that we always talk about is that a lot of these people that are working at the big two, whether it's writing or editors or whatever, they aren't from the comic book community. They don't know about comic books. They don't know about the history of comic books, the history of these characters. You know, back in the day, the editors used to be super fans of these characters.
Jim Shooter, one of the greatest editors in chief of all time.
But Brian, I'll argue with you that they're it's not even that. It's they don't know how to function as a production unit. They don't understand, how hard it is to do a comic book page. I still always remember Jim Shooter drew that one issue. Remember?
Yeah.
There was an issue that Jim drew to kind of this is
how you do it, yeah.
And of course it was bad, but
it made schedule.
But yeah, I mean, but that it's just that there's this huge disconnect between people knowing like for example, here's a perfect example. Okay, so me as an editor, if I'm working with another artist and he's behind schedule and we need to get it done, and it's like, okay, silhouette those last two panels. Take that panel, make it one. Okay. Next 2 pages, don't do any backgrounds. They don't know how to do that.
Right.
They don't know how to get a book back on schedule when it needs to be put back on schedule. And there aren't any inventory issues anymore. There used to be inventory issues where if we do fuck up, okay, we've got Sal Buscema's issue of this that we can throw in,
Right.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Like the 5th week issues.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
so Brian, like I've been harping on, I always feel that you're ahead of the curve. What would you do with this current? I mean, clearly you're doing it with the marked. You're upping the cover game. You're doing new stuff that hasn't been seen in a long time, probably since Aria. When you were making huge strides with that. What would you do to propel this industry back to where it was?
Give the people what they want, but sometimes we've lost so much of the younger generation to webtoons.
Yep.
And I mean last year, so this is an example. So last year I was interviewing for new assistants, and there were 4 20-something women that I was interviewing, and out of the 4, 1 ever went into a comic book store, but she also did webtoons. The other 3, all webtoons.
Wow.
Yeah. When we lose that kind of generational strength, it becomes. I mean, I shared with somebody, there was I forget who the artist was, and he was signing somewhere. And there was, a bunch of people at the signing, but there wasn't a single person in the signing that didn't have gray hair.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. We just live in a crazy world.
And it's not that the problem is the comic book industry lives and dies by how good the product is.
Yep.
And with Marvel and DC just dealing with the whole shelf space crap, we're going to put out a whole bunch of books that aren't good. Can you imagine being a first-time person going into a comic book store, grabbing something off the shelf? Let's say it's not curated by the comic book store, because I love comic shop owners, and when they curate things, they'll point you towards, this is the cool shit, this is whatever, But if you don't have that, and you just grab something off the shelf and you take it home, chances are you're not going to come back these days. It's not like what it was when I was first indoctrinated from my friends, cherry picking all these awesome books.
Well, I know we're Facebook friends, but I don't ever, assume that you've followed what I've been doing for the last 2 years. The experiment of the retro comic book store. I rack 90s books as if they were new. And I call them the normies, not out of insult, but out of what they are. The normies come in and they're just like, wow, these look great. And it was a dynamic experience buying a book off the wall from the 90s. And
we were trying to do better.
Yeah.
And that was the bottom line. This is what, again, the other great lesson I learned from back in those days, it was everyone's job to better the product at the end of the day.
And you were rewarded better than
colorist.
You were rewarded better than the Kurt Swan era meat and potatoes guys. There was incentives for you to do better at places like Image.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about Witchblade. We probably tell us how Witchblade came about and all that. I know we kind of skipped over that. I was hoping that'd be one of the first things we talk about. But tell us about Witchblade.
Well, I was gabbing, so
that's what we want. Yeah, hell yeah.
No, that's good. That's good.
I just recently, I'm down here now a stone's throw. I'm in Santa Monica right now. I'm currently writing the screenplay adaptation of my Houdini graphic novel with Nick Vallelonga, who got the Academy Award and Golden Globe for The Green Book.
Wow.
And so we're doing the adaptation right now. So I'm up because I live down south farther, so to avoid a 2-hour drive, I'm up here. I am a stone's throw from, and I posted recently, the restaurant on the Santa Monica Pier that Dave Wall and I went down to and started discussing what it was going to be. And because it was Brian Polito, the Doing Great Lady Death, Billy, it's like, let's do ours. And it was the top cow mantra. It's like, we can do it better. We can do it. We can do this. Let's do it. That was the whole thing. And it was, originally she was Sarah Lopez, and that didn't end at the end of the day. Originally she was going to be a fireman. But of course, rightly, we got more ancillary ideas out of her being a detective. Makes more sense. It was better. But again, those were the initial ideas that you throw out. And it was Dave.
A lot of people don't realize it's and because of your love of Daredevil, it's very Daredevil-esque. Cop by day, fighting justice by night as Witchblade.
Well, yeah, because you got to have those other things to complicate your life and other potential stories that aren't necessarily superhero stories, Yeah. And again, it was very wise. So so it was Dave and I initially, and then Mark. I had just wrote the miniseries with Mike Wetworks Ballistic, which was one of our.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So Mike and I started, and that's when Mike started hitting his stride, and it was a no-brainer to have Mike on board. Mike was one of the most, God, I miss Mike. Mike is one of those guys that was, I could show him, because he was new to the industry generally, right? And I could show him all this stuff, and he would he was one of those guys because he was a kickboxer, he was an athlete, right? And I always think those guys who trained as athletes kind of are the best artists because they understand that you have to train. You have to work at it. You have to do all this stuff. You have to be willing to look at everything. And I'd show him Kiasa, Mia. I would show him all this references from this way and that way and stuff. And Mike would just go and just be able to spit them back out. He was amazing. And plus he was one of those guys who would just freaking light up a room. He had that kind of smile that would be just like, yeah, there you go.
Did you ever hear the story of his first portfolio review?
I'm sure I have, but I don't remember.
So his mother was friends with Shel Dorf, the original founder of the San Diego Comic-Con, Golden State Comic-Con. And she said, hey, my son is an artist. Is there anything you can help him with? And he took one look at Mike's work from high school and said, oh, are you free in 2 weeks? I'll take you down to San Diego. And Shell Dorf walked Michael Turner into the Wizard, or into the Image booths. It was multiple booths back then, and dropped his portfolio, I believe, on the Top Cow, table there. And the entire convention world swarmed that table, and Sheldorf introduced Michael Turner to the world.
Yeah.
So did you?
But having said that, Mark is what really kind of. I mean, that was the thing that doesn't exist anymore. We had a farm club. Mark had a condo that he would put these guys up in. When I first went to Homage and started working, Dave Benitez was there drawing every day. He did not have a book to draw. Mark was coaching these guys. Dave Finch, same thing. Billy Tan. All these guys. It's like they didn't have a book. Mark had this ability to, one, spot talent, and two, be able to elevate talent, and we continued that even in Santa Monica when we had because there was another condo here that people would, crash at and do whatever. And they didn't have to, they get money, they get paid, but they didn't have to do a book because they weren't ready yet to do a book. Yeah. When they were ready to do a book, then you got a book, and that doesn't exist anymore either.
Yeah.
So when you sat down, how long was it from that moment you sat down and started discussing till issue 1 came out? How long did that take?
Probably no more than 6 months.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. I guess
probably no more than 6, because we did first. It was the logical choice to do the Psyblade She crossover with Billy. Because that was automatically like, okay, because Billy was so hot at the time. It was like, this is a perfect way for us to, leapfrog.
Billy says that was his first 7-figure check for a comic book. Psyblade She. He was like, I got a 7-figure check and I bought everyone I know a Jeep, a brand new Jeep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was, but it was, again, part of it was too from my, background in television. It was like, okay, let's develop shit. Let's get it all set up. Let's get all the pieces in place. If there's something that can propel us, because that was also, and I don't hope this doesn't sound, crappy, but I was the colorist that no one could get. And I was top of the pyramid back then, and I was actually a pull to bring Billy in too. It's like, oh God, so I can get Bryan to color my shit. It's like, and that was, when I finally left Top Cow, those floodgates just opened because Jimmy and Joe always wanted me to do stuff, and Todd, and it was when I finally left, it was kind of easy to set up my studio and everything, but
so
I was forbidden fruit for so long.
So you leave all that and you create Avalon. Can you talk about Avalon a little bit?
Yeah, Avalon was Will Spartaccio and myself. So we created Stone, which was the #1 selling independent book of 1998. The only thing that beat us was Jay and Silent Bob in its second printing. Beat us a little bit. And then we came out with Aria, which was the second selling highest book in the United States when it came out. 130,000 copies on the first thing. and we did The Wicked, which was our horror thing. Again, I wanted to have like superhero thing, a fantasy thing, the horror thing, and Hellcop, which I brought back again,
right.
Which did very well, and it's bringing it back because Hellcop was always the one that I wanted to do, but I didn't have the chops to do it then, and I knew I didn't have the chops to do it. So it was, Joe Casey wrote the Avalon ones, and Gilbert Monsanto, who did a great job doing the drawing. But I've always, if you looked at every sketchbook I've had between then and there, there's always been Hellcop drawings in it. I've always wanted to do Hellcop again, and did. And now we're going out with that. With David Hayter is the showrunner on it. David Hayter wrote the first 2 X-Men movies, the Watchmen movie, Ran Warrior Nun, and stuff. So that's going out to television.
Did little voice acting work for Solid Snake along the way?
He did. He makes some good cash at that for at shows, which I tease him about from time to time. He was just at the Dallas Expo, I think. It was funny because there was a picture with a guy who I know who took a picture with him, and he was like doing this, and I go, I didn't know you did signatures and posing at the same time.
Well, and I met David through Gary Reed, because he had written the Dead World script, which was amazing back when it got optioned. And so so David's great. And so Hellcop, and then we branched out a little bit to do some non, MREX, which we didn't really finish.
Right.
Which
Cartoon Network, right?
There needs to be one more issue of that to finish it, which I need to twist Joe Kelly and Duncan to do at some point. Duncan Rouleau, but it became, it just became. I was still so wanted as a colorist, and it just became harder to do the publishing back then. So eventually we just, closed the door. I mean, it was just, it just became.
Well, this is a question. This is a question kind of along that. You were the number one colorist at the top of the pyramid. Was there a point where you were like, holy shit, my colorist rate is better than some of these guys are getting for their penciling rates? What was that pay structure like? You don't have to give us specifics, but clearly the top of the pyramid has to have a lateral better or lesser. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would say that I probably make 4x over anyone ever.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's how it should be. If you're,
but you were,
but, and I helped. There are things that I helped change. It's like no colorists used to sign their covers, and we were. And my first credit is as a color separator, not as a colorist.
Brian just perked up.
What was that first credit that you had?
It was a Cyberforce. I want to say it was Cyberforce, maybe 4, because before we really kind of went in, and I changed everything. Better or worse, there used to be the process used to be color guides, and then those were handed to the digital guy. And I still always remember the first time I was handed a Joe Chito color guide. And if you've never seen a Joe Chito color guide, they're freaking paintings. And I was like, why don't we just scan these? But it wasn't the look of the time, because Steve Olaf was the look of the time. So, and Steve had the Cod Barrett system, was a vector-based coloring system. And so you got these bands of color and stuff, which also threw me when I first got there, because it's like, no, this is what we've been fighting against all in digital. It's like, we want to have computers that can handle millions of colors, not be able to do bands of colors anymore. And at a certain point, it became, I was the first guy, I think, to like, listen, I'm just going to hire painters and artists and teach them to use Photoshop. We don't need guides. at that point, you know.
Right, sure.
And that's kind of, you know, I mean, the guys that I hired, I mean, Drew Posada, who's no longer with us, who was stunning, if you know his work. My first guys in Tyson Wengler, and then it was, you know, Richard Isanov and Steve Furkow and Peter Steigerwald, and, you know, all these guys who were just, they understood color. They understood color better than I understood color when I first started. And I just taught them to use Photoshop. But it also changed too, because back when I started, because I had the fastest PC in the world that you could get back then when I was at Warner Brothers. It was a 486 PC DX50, you know, as fast as you could possibly get. And we were stupid enough back in the day to color original pages at 300 DPI at 11 by 17 a scan, which was, you don't need to do that because color is more pliable than line art. So I was like, I had it brought down to San Diego and I had it there, and it was choking on every freaking page. And the real reason for that was the Windows operating system at the time was 16-bit. Okay, so I couldn't do it. So we had to buy a Mac that could handle it. And back then, you had to spend at least $8,000 to buy a Mac that could color a comic book page. Wow. And that's why there were all these studios as opposed to individual colorists digitally coloring.
Right, sure. Yeah.
It was just too freaking expensive, you know? And it wasn't until probably 95, 96 that you could then have a $2,000. I mean, because there was that period of time when there were these Mac clones, you know, that when Steve Jobs left Apple for a brief period of time, and there were these power computing Mac clones. You get them for $2,000. They could do it, you know. And then today you can color a comic on the freaking laptop I'm on right now, you know,
tablet,
or on my iPad, even for that. It's like, but back then there was a bridge of money that you couldn't get to. I mean, Steve Ola's studio, the Cod Barrett studio. So it was a proprietary coloring system called the Cod Barrett system. And you had to, and it worked on a PC, and it worked on a 286 PC, which was an affordable PC back then. But these guys were coloring blind. These guys had the coloring sets over to the side, and they knew what the color grad was. Oh, 286 to and pull the grad and stuff. They didn't see what the color actually looked like until they printed out proofs.
Wow.
And back in that day, also the screen to the printer was another big threshold, because you would see a color on the screen, and then you would, you know, just from my experience, take it to Kinko's, and even on their best machines, it would come out nothing like what was on the screen.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I ask you?
No questions.
No questions. So here's an opinion. Okay. So generational acceptance on what you are doing. So today we have a lot of people don't like AI, whatever it is that's immature to what I'm trying to talk about. But as you're doing all this stuff, how are the traditional creators looking at you as you start bringing in your computers and doing all this other stuff? Was there any resistance to that?
Oh, sure. There always was. I mean, there was this resistance back when I first started using an airbrush. You know, I mean, a traditional airbrush.
Yeah.
Well, I remember somebody just recently accused you of using AI on one of the marked covers, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be perfectly public with that. When I first started working like 2.5 years ago, when it was like kind of crappy and weird, but it did some interesting textures, and it's like, and it couldn't do faces and arms and stuff. Okay, I'm painting the rest of the shit. You know, what's the problem? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, because, you know, again, it's like using it as a tool as opposed to using it whatever. But it was like, it was not good. You know, I had to fix my, but there was some interesting texture shit that I was doing that I've never seen before, and it's like, okay, that's something I've never seen before. That's kind of cool. And I'm doing most of the, I mean, like, you know, again, a lot of the image you have up, it's like I repainted at least 60% of that thing, you know, or more, you know, but then people start wigging out about it. So it's like, okay, well, I'll go back to my 3D modeling using that as a reference. Fine, so, but, it's like, people need to kind of encourage stuff, and that's not at all. There's no AI in that.
I was about to say you went to going back, and I mean, this cover, I got to be honest, is one of my all-time favorite covers. It is absolutely gorgeous. The art on this whole series is absolutely gorgeous. But talking about the AI stuff, there is a lot of artists out there that are going to use many different tools and put it in their tool belt, and that is what being an artist is. You use many different things to get different types of results.
Well, and like anything else, there's a way to use it ethically and a way not to use it ethically.
Yes.
Well, and nobody complained when Eddie Van Halen took drills to his guitars to get different sounds, out of the bass of it. Nobody took, Jackson Pollock. You're just splashing paint on there are, you're using a jet engine to splash paint on a canvas. That's, not artists. You should be using a brush. There's always this big fight against somebody, like I constantly harp on, Brian. I'm sorry, but somebody ahead of the curve is always going to catch that flack. And you, my friend, have always, in my opinion, been ahead of this curve.
Well, and even with my traditional, because I have 3D models, I do my shaders, I model my own stuff, and using that technique, it was funny because I went back and calculated since the first anomaly, so that was 2012, going to today, I have done 2,759 pages of sequential art.
Wow. Yeah.
You brought up
Let's
anomaly.
Talk about anomaly. Can we talk about anomaly?
Yeah, this is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Can I ask you something before you start talking about? Is augmented reality? Can you tell us what augmented reality is first before you go into this?
Well, they have it run anyway. But augmented reality is basically with your phone or tablet, you can point at something and you can have all these different layers of either a page disappears and a new page appears, or you have characters animate that talk to you and such. It brings it to a whole nother level of, again, interactivity, as you can see from here. We had, voice actors on this. We had, you could, again, spin around the spaceships and check it out. All this data. There was another 100 pages of appendice information, which I found was the thing that was really intriguing me, too, as a creator with it, is you can keep adding to it. So you can keep so when we first started Anomaly, I believe it had 25 interactive pages, and it was updated at least 3 times over the years, and it now has 55. So more pages. And then the idea of that you can use it to kind of augment your storytelling or change the storytelling. Again, just looking for the next thing that can because my effort too was like, guys seem to be moving away a little bit from the print medium. Let's fuse it together a little bit. Well, that was one of the efforts behind it as well, because I love print. I always will love print. As I'll go into bookstores and I see something that's like really cool and stuff. And it's like, oh, maybe I want to do something like that. I'm going to buy it and use it for reference or send it to a printer later. Can we do this paper stock and which is what you have to do.
Well, I think one of the problems with Anomaly, and I'll just tell you this because I support.
Well, it was big ass and it weighed like 15 pounds.
Well, yeah. and the thing is I remember this book, and this is right when I started really branching into Amazon. So I would rack your book, and it seemed like every retailer summit, Diamond was giving us a free copy of this thing. And I'm like, awesome, I love it, awesome. And I'd take it back to the store, and I couldn't get anybody to buy it. I'd show them because you gave me a sample copy of it one time. Yeah. And I would show people with my phone. I was so excited to show off my friend Brian's amazing new toy. And people were like either A, shocked at the price point, or B, they just didn't get it. And I'd put one on Amazon at full price and it would sell. And then I'd get another copy, and I'd see you at a show, and I'd buy a copy from you if I was out. And it just seemed like this never-ending cycle of I couldn't get people to do it in a comic book store, but if I put it on Amazon, it sold. And I don't know what the cognitive dissonance was with the comic shop customer versus, the general public.
Well, one of the things that I think I've learned over the years is the comic book buying market, because I've always tried to innovate. And at a certain point, it's the comic book market, again, when you talk about digital, let's say, it's like, because there's the whole time when people are doing some animation. And there's a version of Anomaly that is voice acted, parallax animation, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, most comic book people just want a fucking PDF. They just want, here's the comic. It's like, I don't fucking care about it. Like, and even that was even a hiccup for Webtoons, because Webtoons tried to go that way and add extra, bits and bobs. Like, no, I just want to scroll down and see the next thing. I don't care, and that was something that's why, eventually we stopped doing the augmented reality on comics. On children's books, it does great. We have at our booths, we always sell out of our Creative Creature Catcher book, which we're doing a second one of right now. But we have, I put on top of the monitor where you have the commercials running for, I say, coolest children's book ever. And you get people coming into the booth with like the chip on their shoulder. Yeah, prove it, and it's like, and they walk away with 2 copies.
Right, sure.
But with comics is like vinyl, it's like people who like comics. Pencil, it's not even painted will put them off. It's like, no, it's penciled, inked. That's the way it is. That's a comic, and I agree that's part of that's the art form. That's the original art form.
But let's be honest here. One of the toughest things to do is to bring kids back into this medium, right? Where we're losing the younger audience in comic books and this and that. And that younger audience, this is what they've grown up with. They've, as soon as they came out the box, they get a iPad in their hands to keep them, busy. Yeah. And this is the type of stuff they love. So to me, this is the main way to bring that younger community in. Show them something they're used to, and if you build it, they will come.
Again, and Dennis and I have talked this before. From the very beginning of Comixology, right? Where they bamboozled everybody and yada yada yada, but it killed the American version of Webtoons. And now Webtoons is what, 170 million people. It's like, you can't avoid that. That's where the eyeballs are, and like I told you before from the earlier story, all those assistants, that's where they look at this stuff, and that is the young.
And I remember
I got this, and this is where
that's all you need. Yeah.
Yep.
One of the great analogies that I tell people, it's like Penny Arcade had its own convention. It had millions of people every day log on and read whatever they were doing. They put it into comic book form. Nobody gave a shit at the retail level. Yeah. It's like, because that exists over there. You can't try to take something from over there and just shoehorn it into the comic book industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say the customer behavioral status and buying power back in 2012, you were way too far advanced for that clientele at that time?
The problem is with anything that you have to educate your buyer to. So it's not just about selling a cool book, which how I built it from the beginning, because in the very beginning, the only way you could do AR is having a QR code sitting right on the page, right? And it's like, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then all of a sudden the software changed so they could recognize images. And it's like, okay, great, because I can then, anything I want. So I built it so the AR was an additive, not, you didn't need to do the AR, but even today, I mean, guys, if I go to a show and I show people think it's, oh my God, I've never seen this before. It's so cool and stuff. But you have to hand sell it, because even like doing ads on Facebook with a video, people don't get it.
Yeah.
People, they just don't get it. It's like you show it to them. It's like, I was always joking with people. It's like, if I could get on, Good Morning America, then I'm all set. But that's what it would take.
Well, and you were always one of those guys that I also complimented you on, especially at C2E2, because I think C2E2 is where you had your best kind of presence. Mm-hmm. You hand sold every copy of that, and I would see people carrying it around the show. Yeah. And especially like you said earlier, it weighed 15, 20 pounds, that's a hard road to pave, but you paved it, and you did it because you loved the product that you were selling.
Yeah.
And a lot of people won't do that, and you did it.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's the point of selling something you don't believe in?
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
I mean, what's the I don't get that, and stuff. But yeah. No, but that's it's kind of funny that you're showing that right now. That's the thing that surprisingly is blowing up for me right now. My fine art.
I was going to ask. Yeah, you do a lot of this.
I was just on the cover of Fine Art Collector this month.
Keep that up. Look at that. And that's the difference, right? I think that there's a lot of pushback in the comic world with artists that are using, like we brought up AI art and digital stuff. But there's this thing where if you're also able to do, traditional stuff, your fine art and this, and they look at that and they say, okay, now it's okay. I mean, you can kill it with your traditional stuff too, which you're doing in the fine art world, which is amazing.
Because I'm fucking old, and there was no digital when I started, so I was trained as a traditional illustrator. So I can do oils and watercolor and pastels and colored pencil and all that shit, because I've always been so proud of being trained as an illustrator from my early career, where it was your job was to be able to do anything.
You're like
the other guy, I don't want this to sound, because I'm not equating myself to him, but you can see that in Bill Sienkiewicz's work. Bill understands how illustration works. And that's how he pulls off the stuff he pulls off. And there are not a lot of guys. I mean, I teach also. I teach at MCAT at Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and have for decades now. But there are not a lot of people that understand how to do. I mean, I'm old enough. I've got enough under my belt. Again, I was an athlete in high school and stuff. I understand training. I understand I was a power lifter, gymnast, blah 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 blah. I understand training, and that's what I applied to my earlier artwork. I wanted to know how to do everything. And it was not until I was a freshman at Loyola, and I was a communications major, not a art major, because I figured I already kind of, by 18, I was already starting to make money on the side as an illustrator. And I was like, but I wanted to learn. And there was this great old school illustrator, Roger Hubbard, who was a famous illustrator in the 70s, and stuff. And there was back in the day, there was a thing called California Workbook, which was about this thick, twice the thick of an old school diamond previews. And every professional illustrator that there was took a page out for advertising. That's what it was. And this thing would be sent out free to all the art directors and advertising and all that kind of stuff. And I could go to, again, there's no internet back then. It's like I could go to Roger and pull up a page like, how's that done? What's that done with? It's like, oh, that's, matte medium on a board and then gouache on top of that and da-da-da-da-da. Great. Okay, I can go play with that now. It's like, okay, tell me how's this done? Because there was none of this, and it's, again, I need to get back, because I've, digital art tutorials as well, where I've taught a lot of people, to do stuff. And I kind of need to get back into that a little bit, which I kind of been too busy doing, I've been really focusing on the entertainment stuff lately. We have pitches out for Ario, we have pitches out for Hellcop, we have pitches out for Creature Catcher. I'm doing the screenplay for Houdini right now. I've got David and I are working on a new graphic novel. I'm working on another sequential thing, a rom-com thing of all things. So I've got a lot of things, and then all the freaking, again, even like this, I'm featured in this magazine this month too, Beautiful Bizarre magazine.
Oh yeah. How important is it to you to do that teaching and that to pass that down? The style, how to do things in that traditional.
Here's my simple explanation. The simple explanation is I like to see more stuff and cool stuff. So if I can help anyone to do more cool stuff, there you go. That's what I want to see. People. I mean, I still keep thinking about calling out, but I still remember when I first started in digital art tutorials. There's a guy who's one of the more well-known colorists in the industry. And I remember he was the only asshole that called me up when I first started doing it. You're giving away the secrets. And he was one of the guys that I taught how to do stuff.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
That's sad. Hilarious. That's sad.
I'm going to be nice enough not to say his name.
Right.
That blows me away. It's like
me too.
Yeah. I've got to say this. So I was thinking while you were talking, and I've known you for a long time, but in my 42 years of selling comics, you're one of the most respected creators out there. But how do you stay level-headed with all us knuckleheads in the industry? What keeps you level-headed? Because I have never met you or talked to you where you were overstressed, or maybe you hide it well, but how do you stay so level-headed?
Well, I drink heavily.
Thus the mini Brian and Dennis Barr moments.
Again, it's like it's the Excalibur moment. It's like there's always something cleverer than yourself, right? And it's about always wanting to learn and always wanting to do something new and being open to things. And if you're not open to things, I see so many comic guys that just like, it's like they put on the blinders, and it's like, you could be so much better than you are now if you start reaching a little bit to something else. And they're like, I keep thinking about figuring out some sort of award, right, for comic book artists that keep getting better, because there are so many comic book artists. I mean, that was always my disappointment with, when I first got in, the guy who I loved was John Byrne, and then John started cutting more corners and more corners and more corners. And I mean, this guy at one point, because I used to have, because Rubenstein used to sell Xeroxes of his stuff at shows, 25 cents. You could buy his Xerox before he went in and inked stuff, right? And I'd see John's stuff, and they were fully shaded, fully rendered pencils. And John was doing 2.5 books a month.
Wow.
The only guy I know that could do the same thing was Buscema, and then John would have, John Buscema would, you got Ernie Chan, you got, again, the things that don't exist in the industry anymore.
Right.
There aren't any Ernie Chans anymore. There aren't any Alfredo Acalas. There aren't these guys that you could hand breakdowns to and have them do, stuff, finish stuff. And because you could see like a certain point, even Mark with Dan Green. If you saw some of Mark's pages with Dan Green, they're pretty light. I don't want to say they're layouts, but they're not much farther than layouts sometimes, but you had these guys that, were also artists that could finish it off, Yeah. I still remember, again, going back to a great Comic-Con, I always tell the story to Rubenstein when I see him. It's like, yeah, I started a great fight when I was a fan between you and Paul Smith over the role of the inker when you were sitting next to each other at the show.
But we got a question in the chat that I'm curious about. Are there any new and up and coming artistic talents who impress you in the industry? Because like I said, you're ahead of the curve. Who do you see right now who is just as ahead of the curve as you are?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way, but just people that I like. And I'm really bad at his name. You're going to help me. The guy who did Human Target recently with is Tom King? Did Tom King write? I forget who wrote that run. It was that really nice graphic? It's one of those things that I showed to my students. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Tom King and Greg Smallwood.
Yeah, Greg Smallwood. Greg Smallwood does some just really just beautiful, innovative. Again, he does things that I was like, oh yeah, that I wouldn't teach someone to do that, but that totally works. It's like, but the Human Target stuff is just really, really, really nice.
One of the people that I think fell into the category of what you're talking earlier, we lost a generation of artists to the video game industry. Liam Sharp has brought his A game back into play. I think he's doing work that he never did in the video game industry or his early comic industry stuff. And the stuff he's bringing now is just incredible when I see him post new items.
And again, one of the sweetest guys in the entire
one of the best. Absolutely.
I will mark him as a friend. So
yeah, me too. And I met him the same way I met you. Just oh hey, you having a drink? Yeah, I'm having a drink. Let's shoot the shit. Oh wait, you're Liam Sharp? Oh okay, cool.
Yeah. No, Liam has only gotten better. Again, he would be a nominee for that award. Dan Panosian would be another.
Oh yes, love Dan Panosian
for that award.
Dan, by the way, Dan Panosian, I think has the so far the winner for cover of the year so far. The stuff that he's doing, his Power Girl cover was amazing that he did recently. I mean, he just blows me away every new thing he puts out. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. But and Brett Booth. Someone just put a Brett. I mean, it was so funny because I still remember when they were saying, because I'm friends with all the McFarlane people and I'm going to be doing something new with them, which I can't mention. But when they first brought on Brett, I remember Brett from back in the day. And I was like, oh, you bring out Brett Booth to do Spawn? Oh. And then, man, Brett is multiple X's what he used to be. Just beautiful. I mean, he competes with anybody right now, and that wasn't the case a decade ago for sure. But Again, there needs to be an award for the people who get better because there's so many people, especially back in the day, and people that I won't mention now that they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. We deal with that a lot on this channel. Talking about.
Well, I mean, I'll throw someone under the bus. What the fuck was with that Frank Miller Wolverine?
Or that Frank Miller Essentia. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, what the fuck were you thinking, Frank? That's your, return to Marvel, and you put that out?
Yeah, well,
I still remember. Again, this goes back to a Rubenstein story. Remember when he did the miniseries Wolverine, right?
Yes.
Back in the day, right? And Joe had the original pencils, and Frank did, which I've never seen Frank do before. He did bounce lighting. He did hatching in areas. He did double lighting. He did all this stuff. And if you look at what Joe did, Joe just went, blacked it out.
Oh,
wow.
That book would have been, I mean, I love Joe, but that book would have been, and I'm sure too at a certain point, we all don't know deadlines, we all don't know the other shit that goes on, right? It's like, if someone can save a deadline, that was always one of the other best learned things I ever learned, and that was from Todd McFarlane. Because Todd, when I was colorist, and even later when I was drawing the book, we would go over every issue at the end. And this was what he learned from Jim Salcroft, because Jim was Todd's favorite editor ever. And at the end of the book, we go over it. There we go. Yeah, I don't like that bit so much. Did you make the deadline? Yeah, I made the deadline. Okay, then it's okay. And then it's like it was like, let's not do so much of that next time, kind of thing. But there was no, and that's what DC and Marvel are missing right now. It's about not micromanaging the pages as they come along. It's like, manage them. Okay, let's go over the book. Yeah. Not so much of this next time. That's great. Do more of that, and that's how you edit without killing a monthly freaking deadline.
Yeah. It's very
one of my
interesting.
favorite stories. Keith Pollard tells this story. He's local here to the Detroit area, and I've had him in my store a bunch of times. And he was like, I remember I was in the bullpen at Marvel, and they asked me to do this fill-in book. And this was when Stan was still in the office, and Stan comes out and goes, "Who did this book? Who did this book?" And everyone just goes quiet. and Keith's like, "I did." And Stan's like, "This is the best thing I've seen in a year. Keep it up." and that was the way. Nobody ever tells those stories of Stan, and that was his way of saying, this new kid has something. The rest of you need to pay attention, because that's where I want to see this stuff go.
Yep.
Well, there were two, and I didn't remember the first one until recently. There were two guys that not coached me, but really encouraged me to do Creator Own. And one was Todd McFarlane, because of when I was still editor-in-chief, we were trying to staff the Haunt book with Robert Kirkman co-creating with Todd. And during the time, there was Marvel and DC were doing their exclusivity wars, right? And so I'd call up artists that I'd want to do the book, and great, yeah, I'd love to do it. When are you available? 3 years from now. Yeah, that's not going to work, Right. But I mean, meetings with people we bring in, and Todd would be sitting there, and Robert would be on probably a conference call and stuff, and Todd will be going, "Yeah, you don't want to be known for doing Stan and Jack's characters. You want to be known for doing characters." And Robert, of course, would chime in with the same thing, and I'd be sitting in, I was editor-in-chief then, and I was like, I used to do my own characters. I think I have to be leaving, but I didn't remember until a friend of mine, Andy Horn, and Karen Horn was one of the producers on the Spawn animated show back in the day, and he knew Stan, and he was actually one of the producers on the first Blade movie, and we were walking San Diego Comic-Con one day from the Hyatt, and Stan was walking the other way, and he's like, "Oh, you got to meet this." And it was before I'd done any, I hadn't been hired by anybody yet, and stuff. And, "Oh, you got to look at his work," and I showed him. And Stan was like, it's like, you need to do your own work. You need to do Creator Own. And I forgot about that. And that was 92 probably, but, it's like, yeah, so many of these guys, especially guys I was meeting at Comic Fest too. It's like all these guys who, it's like, yeah, I can't work for the big two. And it's like, but there's a big disconnect between someone who has the talent to do it and has the entrepreneurial experience or want to do it as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of artists kind of want to be taken care of. I hate to say,
Yep. One of the chatters, one of the people in the chat dropped a $20 super chat. Thank you for doing that, Cantankerous. And Cantankerous says,
"Oh yeah, Richard Friend absolutely is doing videos."
Cantankerous says, "Love all of your Last Barbarians covers, so fire." And yeah, absolutely amazing, the Last Barbarians stuff. I mean, gorgeous, as you guys can see here. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this stuff. So thank you, Cantankerous, for that.
So, Brian, I have one 2-part question to wrap up my pop quiz hot shot. Name the one person that you were most excited to work with, and name the one person you're disappointed you never got a chance to work with.
Who would I love to work with? Well, I'd like to work with Grant Morrison.
Ooh.
I'd like to work with Grant. And the person that I never directly worked with, though we met several times, he did a great drawing for me that I'll find to post for you guys. Gil Kane. Gil, I've got a couple drawings from Gil when I was a kid back in the day. He did, which I need to send out. He did.
His Green Lantern is my favorite Green Lantern.
Well, I had him do, because my friend and I, Kirk, were like, what are the kind of cool things we could ask now that everyone's asking to get drawn and stuff? Can you draw me Galactus with his helmet off?
Wow.
And I have Gil Kane. He's holding the helmet, and it's Gil Kane Galactus without his helmet on.
That's cool. That is cool.
And he was such a nice guy, and such a gentleman, and yeah, he was. It was those are the guys that you miss, but but again, jumping back, I bet somewhere along the line I would be working with Mike Turner again, and I would really love to see what Mike would be, because I know Mike progress again. When we're talking about guys who get better, I would love to see the version of Mike that exists today. But that was another discussion I just had. I'm old enough now that I can call all these guys, and they usually call me back. The best guys in the industry, right? And so I was teaching the class, and I was like, one of the things I wanted to do at San Diego, but it didn't work out this year, was elements of style. So people who decide what their style is stuff. And I called up Mark Silvestri, because again, Mark has raised his bar. It's like, Mark, where did this new style come from? And he called me back, and we were, it's like, it's Franklin Booth, who's a great old school illustrator, etching artist, and Barney writes it. But then it was also Mark, but Mark could get into it further than that. Mark could say, okay, if you look at my panels, when I'm doing this cool, hatching stuff, I'm also using it as motion lines. So if you look at some of my panels, you'll see in the background, the fades will point to what I want them to point to. Or if there's a speed, because Mark goes, I always hated doing speed lines, but now I can hatch in the shadow area, and I can hatch directing towards the speed line. So it's like, there's all these levels. It's like, again, it's like between Todd and I mean, again, when I interviewed with Todd can tell you how to do any comic style you want. Todd does the style that he does, because that's what he does. But Todd understands the medium like almost nobody else I've ever met. He can tell you exactly how panel progression works in different ways, right? Whether he does it or not, he can tell you how that works, and it goes that way. We've had a 2-hour conversation on word balloons and how they function and how they should be placed. It's like, but it's these guys that it's like, if I had unlimited time, which I don't, that would be one of the things I would do, is go, let's do a book, and here's the section review how to do comics, and frankly, I think the industry could probably use it. I hate to say, but
yes,
not that I hate to say, but it could use it. Because again, for me, when I first started, it was how to draw the Marvel way. It was like, and that's all great and wonderful. And it was also, Eisner's storytelling, book, that was the other one, but there are all these guys who have all this information and all this ability and all this passion that it's just not there. It's not out there for the public.
Yep.
So I have my final question, going all the way back to 1982, Cortez Hotel, San Diego Con, 40 tables, no lines. You could literally walk up to George Perez, get an autograph like 10 times and still no one be in line. One panel room. What are the pros and cons from there to modern San Diego, what have we lost in your mind and what have we gained?
I don't know if we gained much, but we've lost. Again, the thing that I hate about it, and is why I've had my own booth for years, is like there used to be artist alley used to mean something.
Mm-hmm. Right, sure.
And these poor guys are now crunched into they're 4-foot tables. They're not even like 6-foot tables,
And they don't even have room for a chair behind them.
Yeah, and this is what started the whole bloody thing. It's like, come on, guys. It's like, give them the space. That was the joy of there's that sort of semi-pandemic version.
Yes.
I forget what they called it and
2 years ago.
Yeah, and there was guys had 6-foot tables and they had space between the tables, and it was like, I like this version of San Diego Comic-Con. This is great.
Well, and I used to joke, because you would be on the main floor, between the Marvel booth and the Gentle Giant booth, and you'd be doing these little short steps to get through the cattle call. And I'm like, well, if you want leg room, just go over where they sell comic books from the retailers. And you could do the second you broke past the Gentle Giant booth, you could do full strides for the rest of the convention going towards the Hyatt and the Marriott.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you feel it's not as intimate like it was back in the day. You lose that completely.
Yeah, and plus, come on. When I first started going as a kid, hey guys, you want to go to San Diego Comic-Con this weekend? Yeah, let's go. Let's get in the car and go.
Yeah.
And buy tickets at the booth and go. It's like now it's like 1 hour sold out crap, and it's like, and it's hard to go for people, and it shouldn't be hard to go to something like this.
Another, just like from 6 or 7 years ago, I think it was 7 years ago. I'm walking through San Diego, and it was Dark Horse's giant booth, and it had that giant cattle line, and then a nice dais where people would sign. And I look over and I'm like, is that Walton Louise just sitting there with no one in front of them in this giant 30 by 30 cattle call area? And they were just sitting up there. And I walk up and I'm like, hey guys. And they're just there to sign a print of something they did for Dark Horse. And there was no publication of like, Walt and Louise Simonson are literally sitting here doing nothing but twiddling their thumbs to sign prints.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is not what Comic-Con's supposed to be.
No. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. Again, a joy to see these knuckleheads again, and a new knucklehead I get to add.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much. And we want to have you on in the future also. Can you tell people what you got coming up other than all this great fine art stuff that you got going on and being, in those new book magazines and stuff?
We have coming out in October, from Image, there's a 3D anaglyph glasses, faster than light Halloween special.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be tabloid size, full anaglyph 3D. There's going to be a wink cover. If you've never seen what those are, is you close the one eye, close the other eye, and 2 images will alternate out of the 3D image.
That's cool.
My studio's been doing all the 3D stuff for Marvel over the last years and stuff. And methods that I've created to do that stuff. So we have that coming out, and then we have at the end of the year in December, Image is putting together a collection of every single 3D anaglyph issue that I've come out with in a big, thick trade with 3D glasses and all that stuff. David Hine and I are finishing up a graphic novel called The Magus, which basically is imagine in the future we have a computer with all our space telescopes and everything. A quantum computer can now make astrology actually works.
Wow.
Every day you get a personal horoscope that tells you exactly what your day is going to be.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Awesome.
And it's a murder mystery at the end of the day.
You know what? Tell people like what you did to sell before we let you go, because you just brought it up. Faster Than Light. When that book came out, I want to say 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
You did some of the most amazing retailer promo items that I still have sitting on my desk to this day. You had the little
an astronaut squeezy.
Yeah, and
mission patches. We did mission patches.
And then you did.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What was the little solution that you had in a little test tube? Because
that was Anomaly. That was the ooze.
Oh, that was Anomaly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had the magnet, and we had ferrofluid, which is magnetic. It pays attention to magnetism. So when you pull the magnet, it makes it look like it's alive, and it moves around as you move the magnet around.
You're just so far.
But I've always believed in that. You got to give some promo out, and it's like. But that's one of the things that always blows me away with new creators. Is like you can't just because all the people go, oh, I got a new image book, great. It's like it's all crap. It's like, did you do anything to promote it?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Did you go to freaking Comix Pro or a Diamond Summit back in the day? I mean, I don't think there's no Luna thing, is there?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no. It's like you gotta these are the people. These are your frontline troops. It's like give your frontline troops some ammo,
and you have to sell. You have to sell every issue like it's issue number 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time tonight. I know how important your time is, and we can't say thank you enough for you.
Am I going to see you characters at San Diego?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you at, Hyatt?
Something weird what happened this year, so I'm in Marriott.
Oh, okay.
First time in years, and a lot of my friends are. So I don't know. Something's gone on at San Diego.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I am celebrating my 39th year going. So
wow.
So gotta keep that streak going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
all right,
see
guys.
you
I
in
look
San
forward to
Diego.
seeing you guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you
Appreciate
very much for having me.
All right.
Yep.
Talk to
Take
you
care,
later,
guys.
That was
Okay, take
awesome. That was super cool. One of the great creators in this game, and the stuff that he has done is just, I mean.
I wanted to add something, but I didn't want to add it while he was here, but he'll listen to it, and he's probably backstage listening to it. You know the most amazing thing about all the time that I've hung out with Brian at conventions is he and I can sit at a bar, and I'm nobody comes up and is like, oh my God, it's Brian Haberlin. Hey, Brian, I wanted to talk to you about this. And it amazes me that he is so under-recognized at these places.
Yeah.
That I just get uninterrupted time with him.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that really goes to when you're level-headed in the industry, that's what happens, what exactly Dennis just said. Yep. You become this guy that you can walk up to him, you can have a good conversation. Go ahead, Dennis. I didn't mean to.
No. It's just, and here's the thing. When I see Brian after I first met him, it's a beeline. It's like, oh shit, Brian, hey, how you doing, brother? Oh, let's have a drink. Oh, what are you working on? Oh, you're working on some new augmented reality. I'll come over and check it out. Where are you set up? What's your booth number? All right, let's talk about. He turned me on to crazy the IT crowd from the BBC.
Uh-huh.
I'd never seen it before, and he was like, oh, you got to check this out. Next time I see him, oh my God, I watched it. Totally, I get it. Blah, blah, blah. And we communicate on a different level, and that's what I love is we don't have to talk about this. I found out how prolific Brian was after several years, and then you're just flipping through books. Oh, that's Brian. Oh, cool. That's my friend Brian, And then you see something like Faster Than Light come out, and then you're like, oh, that's my friend Brian. Yeah, I'll order 20 copies of that, And it's just a guy like him, as huge as I really think he is. And like I said, he's so far ahead of the curve. And his dance card is not full when I find him.
Well, I can't. real quick,
Go
I
ahead,
can't say enough about what I think of The Marked. I think The Marked is such a great series, so underrated. One of the most beautiful comic books put out in the last 3-4 years. And I want to see whatever he does continue in comics. I know he's got the fine art stuff, and I mean, he's such a big part of what comics should be.
Well, luckily for us, like he mentioned, that we lost so many people to the video game world, and we lost Artie Garnov to the movie world. We lose so many of these guys. I don't think we're in. Clearly, he still does his Hollywood stuff, and he's always working. And but he loves comics so much. I think he'll always keep a foot in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I ever met him I was lost in San Diego in 2009, and I'm walking around with this map, and I'm lost as heck, can't find my hotel. And this guy comes up and he goes, what's going on? I go, I can't find my hotel. He goes, well, let me see your map. And yeah, I had a map. I don't know why I had a map, not a phone. So he's looking and he looks at me, oh, you're a retailer. I go, yeah. Okay, well, this is what you do, and you go down these streets. So I find my hotel. I go in. First booth I walk up to, he's at. And he goes, oh, hey, I say, hey, you're the guy that helped me with this map. I didn't know you had a spot. He goes, oh, I was just concerned about getting you to the hotel. That's how good he is.
Yeah.
Even though he knew I was a retailer by my badge, he didn't pitch me on anything.
Right.
Oh, no, let me help you get back to your room. And so just one of the great guys in the comic book industry. And I hate to say this, but there's so few of the Brian Haberlins in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's, something we have to work on. So
yeah.
Well, and it's part of the second Jesse's, I'd sent Brian a message, I was talking to him about Lake Como and hooking up with one of my friends who was going to that. And then it was just like, oh, by the way, have you come on our show? It's like, when I get back. And then Jesse is like, hey, I talked to Brian and Brian's coming on. I was like, yeah, awesome. Let's do it because that's going to be a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it comes to.
Yeah. And then the other thing, Drew and Shawn, having those guys on, having good guys in the community. I think we need to show the community how many good guys there are in this community. I think sometimes we get a bad mark on us. But when you see these guys in the room, it shows, hey, we have a great history to come with this. Well, not young generation, but the younger guys in live streaming. So
yeah. Well, you guys come hang out with us every Tuesday night live here at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to continue to bring you great creators and industry vets to talk these great stories. You're not going to hear these stories anywhere else. There's no other place on the YouTube content world that's doing this type of show. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. Check out the links below to these two guys. You can find their links below. Jesse, what do you got coming up, man?
I am actually going to go to sleep. I am tired of doing live streaming. I am tired of people texting me. I've literally during the show, I've had like 60 people email me from eBay. I have no idea how they got a hold of me. When are you on? When are you on? And I think in live streaming, you got to take a break, right?
Yeah.
You can look at the sales and you could say, oh my gosh, look how much. But if you're burnt out and you're tired, and Shawn had said something very interesting, we're there to entertain. We're on there to put on a show. The comics are almost secondary. And so that's my goal tonight, is to get some solid sleep, get up early, and hey, it's Wednesday Warrior Day, right? Mm-hmm. So it's new issue day for a lot of stores, a lot of people, and then just start live streaming from Wednesday on. So
awesome. Dennis, what about you?
I'm just being Dennis, man.
I love it.
I just wrapped up my daughter's graduation party. I
saw
slept
it. It was
14
great.
hours
in a row.
Yeah.
Wow,
it was
that's
kind
crazy.
of amazing. I woke up at like 6:30. I went to bed at like 8, and I woke up at like 6:30, and I'm like, I can't do anything right now. I went back to sleep, and then it was like 10, and I'm like, oh, cool, I can go to work now.
Yeah. I was going to tell a quick story. I'm rooming with you. I think it's in Baltimore or something like this. And no joke, folks. Dennis likes to talk, right? He's a good talker, right? He pushes the buttons. I never partnered up in a room and have someone sleep talking in his sleep about the industry. I'm like, are you up, Dennis? And I look over. Nope, he's passed out, yelling about the industry about something.
Well, that's why we love
You never
him
told
over
me
here.
that. You never told me that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you guys.
Great
Well, check out the links below. I've jumped into the live selling, back into the live selling game. I've had my first 2 whatnot sales over last week. I got another one coming up Thursday night. Make sure you guys check it out. You can find that in the link tree in the bio and along with these guys' stuff. We'll see you guys tomorrow night here on Beyond Wednesdays for our Wednesday night show. Make sure you guys come and hang out. That'll be around 9:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night right here on Beyond Wednesdays. Love you guys. We'll see you soon.